Hey, good morning. This is a meeting of the California Underground Safety Board. Will now resume from yesterday's recess and is called to order at 9:01 on April 15th, 2025. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Charland,
Here.
Clausen,
Here.
Johns,
Here.
Johnson,
Present.
Munoz, Sorum.
Here. Okay, thank you. Before we start, I'll review safety information for those of us in here in person. Today, we are meeting at the California Air Resources Board building in the Hagen Smith Auditorium. In the event of an evacuation, proceed out of the auditorium doors to the back of the room, walk through the lobby to exit the building. We will return to the auditorium and resume the meeting when the emergency is all clear. The meeting now will proceed in the same manner as previous meetings, which will include public participation in person and remotely. We ask that everybody please be aware of crosstalk by ceding the floor as necessary to one another and each taking turn to comment. We will now review public participation and the public comment procedure. For those attending in person who wish to provide public comments, please approach the podium in the middle of the room. Please provide your name and organization before you comment. And then, as yesterday, the webinar phone to enter the queue. Please use the raise hand button if you're on the webinar or dial *5 if you have dialed in. When your name is called, unmute yourself using the microphone button if you are on the webinar or by dialing *6 if you have dialed in. Please provide your name and organization before you comment. So the next item before the board is an information item on updates from the regional notification centers, Dig Alert and USA North 811. So looks like we'll go with Mr. Wingate. Would you like to begin?
Good morning, everyone. James Wingate from USA North 811. As you know, and for Member Clausen's benefit, the regional notification centers, we take turns doing the updates from the statistics point of view, and this meeting happens to be my turn, which I'm happy to do. So, Amber, if I could get you to advance the slide, we'll go through. Oh, we're doing updates first? Okay. That's just fine. That's fine. I'm sorry. I thought we were doing metrics first. Okay. Well, in that case, it's definitely my turn because this is only about USA North 811. So my slides for this time are all entirely about outreach. The first part of 2025 is a really busy time for us, and then wrapping up 2024. So I'll talk about some of those. So the first one is we conduct what we call SAFE seminars, stands for Safety Awareness for Excavators, where we try to provide in-person content for excavators who want that. The goal is to be flexible in terms of if an excavator says, hey, can you come give a safety presentation to my crew at 6 a.m. before we hit the field, we want to accommodate that if we can. Obviously, if we're in the Bay Area, if somebody in Bakersfield says, can you come, and they're only going to have 2 people, we might say no to that. But as a general rule, even if it's a small group, we try to send people in person because we feel they learn more when we are there in person compared to online. We still offer the online, of course, but we want to do in person as much as we can when requested from excavators and utility operators. So this is a picture of one of the meetings that we did up in Eureka. You can see for the year, we finished with 491 excavators that attended 21 different SAFE presentations. So that's an average of about 23 people per. So that's the typical small group. Some are bigger, some are smaller, and sometimes we probably lose money when there end up only being a handful of people there when we thought that there were going to be more, but sometimes that's just how it goes. On the next slide is this is a larger one. We've also hired one of our marketing and education liaisons. Her name is Dulce White, and she is a native Spanish speaker. And so this was her first presentation delivering entirely in Spanish. And she's been with us for 10 years, started on the phones, and has had a number of positions with us over the years. But we moved her into the marketing and education team last year, and now she's ready to be on her own and delivering content entirely in Spanish. So that's been good. On the next slide, this is one where there was Tabor's Drilling hosted an event for students who are going into geotechnical engineering and geology students. And so they asked us if we could come and do a booth, which we did. So that was good to get the word out to some young people and let them have a little hands-on. And we have a collection of damaged utilities, pipes and cables that are kind of mangled, and they like to heft those and, see things that they're not used to seeing that are normally buried. Okay, if we can move to the next slide. The biggest event for our biggest marketing and education event each year is the World Ag Expo. And if you're not familiar with that, it's the largest agricultural trade show in the world, which is held in Tulare County, near Tulare City every year, and it has over 100,000 attendees consistently. And so to get people to come to our booth there, we like this one because it's people who are in the dirt, literally. But also, as you know, we've had a couple of high-profile fatalities during ag work, and so we try to target this group. So to get people to come to your booth when there are 1,500 or 1,500 vendors, and some of them are John Deere and some companies with huge combines and equipment that really is flashy. Our guys have been pretty creative, and if you know cornhole, the game where you toss the bean bags, we do a giant one where you shoot the bean bags from an air cannon like that shoots T-shirts. It's pretty fun, and people love that. And they line up, and this is an aerial shot from our drone operator. We have people waiting in line 45 minutes to take a turn to do that. And this year we did a passport program where we partnered with some of the other utility operators that have booths down there, specifically PG&E, SoCal Gas, and Southern California Edison, in which somebody would go to all 4 of our booths and get their card stamped to show that they'd been there. And if they do that, then they could come and spin that big prize wheel and potentially win a neon green cowboy hat that says 811 on the front. And it's amazing how neon green cowboy hats are a hit. We had people offering our staff $100 for those hats, which of course we said no to because we want them to get it by visiting Fair and Square. But you'll see on some of the upcoming slides when we had reporters come interview, the reporters all wanted to wear a hat, and so it's just kind of a fun thing. But yeah, that's our biggest event. The booths are so busy, we have to send 8 people down there and to keep up with the demand. But that's a good problem to have, right? When we're swamped with people wanting to there. And while they're waiting in line, of course, we're providing education and talking to them about what they do and what we do. Okay, on the next slide, this was that's the passport that I was talking about, where you get stamped to go visit those other ones. And to the credit of others, SoCal Gas, if you've never seen their giant shovel, it's amazing. I'm not sure how tall it is. Is Mike here today? Oh, he's not here right now. But anyway, it's like 20 feet tall or something. It's enormous. And they bring it out and on a big truck and set it up. It's really an attention grabber. So that was good. And you can see how many people completed the passports by visiting all of the different stations. So over 2,000 total. On the next slide. These were some pictures of 2 different reporters. One on the left, that's interviewing Colin Miotti, our marketing and education director. And the one on the right is our marketing and education manager, Matt Dodd, who's also our drone operator and does a lot of our video work. And so it was good to have 2 local news stations out there to get the word out for 811. Actually, we had 3 different ones. Okay. If we can go to the next slide, Amber. Thank you. We also, this one's a video. If you hover over the picture, it will play. Let's see if that'll work. There you go. Will you play that? Oh, might have to share with sound, but anyway, we have a campaign with Univision, the Spanish-speaking television channel for the Bay Area, and we're able to work with them to get a 811 message out. And so there's sound that goes with this, but you can watch that on the slides uh, in the version that's in the docket, so you can watch that for yourself if you want to hear the sound. Had over 2 million impressions, so that was good. Okay, and if we can go on to the next slide. One more. Thank you. We've also been doing some work with billboards. These are in Berkeley and Sacramento. And you can see that, well, that they're digital. So the threshold is 8 seconds. Apparently there have been studies that if the billboard changes too often, then it's a distraction for drivers and can lead to accidents. But if it sits static for too long, then the marketers don't make their money as much as they want. So apparently 8 seconds is the optimal time, but FYI. So these are just some screenshots of billboards that we did in those areas to help with those communities in particular. Okay, if we can go on to the next slide. We also did some webinars around the first of the year. We had a law change in Nevada, and also to review things that took effect for changes with the EPR codes that we talked. Well, I guess we're talking about that today, but changes with the electronic positive response codes that our ticket continuity committee made with DigAlert that took effect on January 1. So this is just a screenshot of Matt conducting one of those videos. Okay, and we had over 1,000 people attend that. And if we can go back one, yeah, this is one. And as we started our safe presentations for this year, this is one in Redding, and then also one in Sacramento. We did San Jose, Santa Rosa, and Concord also so far this year. So the marketing guys are off to a busy start. Okay, we can go to the next slide. We've got a campaign going with the San Jose Earthquake soccer team. This is part of our strategy to reach Latino audiences more. And so we do a booth at every home game. Well, we have opportunity to do a booth at every home game. Some of them we don't do just because they're typically on a Saturday evening, and our marketing guys give up a lot for things they do, and so we try not to make them work every single Saturday night. This is a couple where we had one at the center of the fan zone. They call it the epicenter. I thought that was a clever name on their side, where they can see the booth and talk with us. So that's good. Okay, on the next slide. These are just a few screenshots for the Sacramento Republic, which is another, not the highest level of MLS soccer, but the equivalent of AAA. I'm not sure what you call it in soccer. I should know that, but anyway, so we've had some micro campaigns that I mentioned last year. You may remember where we wanted to target Fresno County and Sacramento County in particular, not just Bay Area, because they had high damages. So this was one of the targets for Sacramento County, was to do stuff with the Sacramento Republic soccer team. And we had the PSA at the 8-minute 11 mark of each game, and you can see the neon signage around the stadium. That was good. Okay, if we can go on to the next one, then this is some of our online training for 2024 as that finished English and Spanish, California and Nevada. We are revamping our 811 Pro website. We had a partnership with Tim Kennedy, who, if you're familiar with him, excavators love him. He used to be a special forces sniper, and then he was an MMA fighter. And anyway, he's a pretty cool guy, but he's very expensive. And so we don't have usage rights for him, or that ended at the end of 2024. So He's archived in the past now, but we cannot use his name, image, and likeness in 2025 and going forward unless we renew that. So we've decided to use that money in different ways in 2025. So we're redoing the 811 Pro website to take his parts out where he introduced different sections, different modules of the training. Okay, on the next page, that's just a summary of all the tabling events we did throughout the year in 2024. Just for the record, we don't need to go through all those. And some of them I gave you updates along the way as we did it. And same with the next page. These were the booth tabling events when we were at sporting events and other things in which we didn't host, but we were asked to attend, such as when PG&E does training for their locators or their safety guys, or it's a CARGA event, the California Regional Common Ground Alliance, or Nevada Regional Common Ground Alliance. And we did a few things on the national level, partnering with other one call centers with NASCAR and some other things like that. So, and then this is just our log for what's happening in 2025 so far through Q1. And this gives you an idea of some of the variation in the size when, so like you see the Sacramento one, City of Sacramento, 110 employees, excellent, well worth our time. But then you see the PG&E and Angwin, and I'll just needle Steve to tease about that, where we were expecting more people than 5. We typically wouldn't go to one that small, but sometimes things happen and perhaps there was an emergency that morning and the crew had to go to that or something, I'm not sure. So that's the variation on some of those events. Okay, on our next slide, that might be my last one, is that it? That's my last, okay, very good. Any questions for me about our marketing and education update?
Hey, James, I appreciate that. You know, it looks like you're getting out there and doing a lot, but one thing I think that might help a bigger footprint with us contractors like myself, Sully Miller, you know, Mr. Clausen, you know, go to the construction associations like UConn, Southern California Contractors Association, AGC, then also get the unions, laborers, operators, carpenters, all of them. The other one is anytime American Society of Civil Engineers has a function, let's get a booth out there. They'll appreciate that.
That's a good idea. We haven't tried the unions. We are members of UConn. SCCA is in Southern California, so we don't typically do that group, but I could check their boundaries. Maybe it includes some of our Northern Territory, but we are a member of UConn and we do stuff with them. They have a safety committee and they have us give regular updates to that committee. ASCE, we have not done anything with them or with AGC. We did talk to AGC and they well, it's been a couple of years. I'll try again. Maybe things are different, but before they were more concerned with above ground and not as much underground, but maybe things are different there now. I'll give that a try. Good, and good ideas with the union. And we could probably look at ASCE too. So thanks for that feedback.
We'll hold board comments until after hearing both sides. So we don't
Very good. Thank
repeat
you.
or steal any thunder from USA South.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Morning, Jim Schwelk with Tigler. The next slide will show some of the outreach we do with the MLS Cup champions last year with the LA Galaxy, how many impressions, and getting the 811 message out. We have a bunch of in-stadium ads that run throughout the entire game, as well as all of their social media campaigns, and a 30-second video at the beginning of every game showing how important it is to get a ticket before you start digging. This is a demographic we've never really targeted before, so getting the message out with them has been very valuable for us. The next slide. This shows the EPR codes. Last October, the 2 regional notification centers boards voted to remove some of the EPR codes. You can see those in red, and reword a couple. Those are the ones in green. And then the cancel, the one in orange, was allowed for all members to use, and we found that. It should only be used for the system when a ticket is canceled. So we've made that correction to where the system is the only one that can use code 42 when a ticket is canceled. We did remove codes 2, 11, 12, 13, 23, 30, 32, 35, 43, and 52 because we felt they were duplicate responses, marked private property versus, just locate area marked. And again, this was a joint decision between the two centers and their boards. The next slide. We started sending auto no responses. So if anyone was required to respond and didn't, the system will automatically send them a no response on the due date and time, only to those members that have not provided an EPR already. So it's not going out to all members, just the ones that are in violation. And then those we also voted in to have no responses, be mandatory, have an EPR instead of a voluntary EPR status. And then if you don't respond to the no response, then you'll get another no response until you respond. We're hoping that this changes the behavior of the operators that aren't following 4216.3C by continuing to let them know that they're in violation. And also with the devastating fires in Palisades and the Eaton fires coming right after the changes to no response, we sent a notice, which you can see at the bottom, out to all of our members, reminding them that they have code 80, which would stop the auto no responses from being generated, especially in the Eaton fire area, where there were 5 small water companies that had to be evacuated. The emergency part of the fires is over now, and they are digging with second remediation, and then they'll start to rebuild. This will be a long process, and we want to remind all the stakeholders that respectful communication is the key to safe excavation. And that's all.
Thank you. So we'd like to start with our in-person comments. If you would like to make a comment, please approach the podium. Please provide your name and organization before you comment. And likewise, we'll move to the webinar comments. Ghost, are there any comments?
There are no webinar comments.
So seeing no further comments, we'll proceed. And thank you for your comments. I guess no, thank you. We didn't get any comments. Would you like to begin the discussion with the board? So board discussion at this time. Okay, that means I get to talk. Thank you for your presentations. Those are informative. It is a way of getting the rubber to, meet the road with your outreaches and getting the word out. I did see being a fan of the former Oakland Athletics. Now in Sacramento, you managed to get 811 at the West Sacramento field. And yeah, I think that's great getting it there. And with all of that you're promoting. One thing and kind of a question, either one of you can address your outreaches. I see, and it's good, I see that we're targeting kind of the bigger groups, larger contractors, things like that. Is there any push for smaller, single, just small firms? I see a lot of our damages occurring are with small contractors. And so really they don't get the opportunity to, have their companies say, you got the morning off to go to attend a meeting and such. Seems like a problem. Any plan to address that? Or one idea would just say, trying to push down the knowledge from the larger general contractors and take it down to their subs. So getting the word spread. So if one of you would like to, or both, take that on, any ideas you might have, and see if we can move forward with something like that maybe.
James Wingate, USA North 811. I'll go first on that. The ones that I mentioned where we said the safe events for excavators, we try to go to each county, and I shouldn't say try, we do go to each of our counties, or some of the really small rural ones, we'll do a few together, but then we will send an invite to all the excavators in our database in that area, telling them when the event is, uh, to try to, with the goal being that we want those small guys to come, and we'll typically rent some type of venue. Kind of depends where it is, but sometimes it's a, you know, Fraternal Order of Eagles hall or a library hall or something like that as a facility owned by the city. Sometimes a utility will host it, but we find we get better attendance if it's not hosted by a utility. So it's more of a neutral ground, so to speak. But that's our attempt to get the small excavators to come. And I could get some if needed, I could get some lists of some of those small ones, but all those safe ones are specifically for excavators in that area, no matter what size, whether they're small or little.
Well, we have significant less counties than James does. We do target the small members with webinars, and Amber is always available to go out. And she does hit a lot of the smaller, like safe events, to go out and give the 811 process message. So we target those as much as we can and as much as they request as well.
Chair, we have a safety tailgate meeting every Monday. You know, catch the guys. We always call it train the brain, you know, for safety and stuff. If you had a pre-printed format for 811, I think would help, and then the guys can just hand it out to the people out in the field and discuss it. And it just gets them thinking about that, you know, to make sure that everything's marked correctly. They take pictures when utility companies come out, so we know where they're at. And we go over that every day when we dig. We estimate how much we're going to do. And so what happens is that the project superintendent or foreman or lead man walks the trench or whatever and locates everything and lets everyone know where the utilities are at. And so when we get to that point, especially the excavator, the guy on the excavator, the operator, I should say, so they know exactly where it's at, because when you hit a utility, it slows you down, you know. So that'd be, I think, beneficial to some of these smaller guys where they see what, um, you know, an emergency, what we call a tailgate meeting, and they can do that and just do procedures like that. It'll save everybody time and money. Okay. Thank you.
I think it's a real good comment, and yeah, you probably do it, but the idea of safety meetings and just sheets, it's real common for most companies to have a list of things to just go over periodically, but reminders. So if they have an 811 sheet or something, uh, I think it'd be a good way to target. Okay, thank you. Uh, Informative. So our
Mr.
next,
Chair,
oh,
point of clarification. We normally have a readout on the matrix. Has that been removed or?
No, that's a separate item on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
okay, so next item before the board is an action item on modifications to the 811 notification center update. Staff will present a report regarding a request from the regional notification centers to modify the structure of their presentations to the board. So have Ms. Hastings listed as okay. So we are proceeding with the metrics presentation and okay, we're continuing and thank you. Mr. Wingate, let's go ahead.
Good morning again, James Wingate, USA North 811. Uh, As I mentioned, it's my turn to do the metrics this time. Sorry, I thought we were doing those before the updates, as I think that's how we've typically done them at past meetings. Okay, so this year is we have data comparing 2024 as it finished, as well as a Q1 of 2023, or excuse me, of 2025, going the wrong way. So nothing especially noteworthy at the beginning for 2024 as far as things finished uh, as the trend continued as they did for the last part of 2024. So nothing especially noteworthy there. 2025 is off to an interesting start. In Northern California, our volume is up about 8% compared to last year. But Dig Alert is having a record year in terms of volume. If you look at 2025, they've done 536,000 tickets processed, whereas you can see in 2024 they did over a million, 1,048,000. So almost half of that in just Q1. So that we'll get to that later for the ticket type, but sorry, I did neglect to mention a couple points that Dig Alert's ticket volume for 2024, they did finish with over a million for the third year in a row. So in their 49-year history, last 3 years in a row of over a million. So that's a good milestone for them as far as, um, you know, the word continuing to spread in Southern California. That's a good marker of, even though population is roughly holding steady in Southern California, to have ticket volume continue to increase and be over a million 3 years in a row. That's good. Okay. So yeah, the ticket volume, that is due to what Jim mentioned about the automatic no responses starting at the first of the year on EPR. And so those get processed as a no response. And so, and if the excavator doesn't respond to, or excuse me, if the utility operator doesn't respond to that first no response, then 2 days later, they'll get another one. So in theory, they could potentially get that 13 times, right? If the ticket life is 28 calendar days, then it would be the first no response would come at the legal start date if they haven't provided EPR, and then every 2 days afterwards. So they could, in theory, get 13 no responses. And so even a small member who doesn't participate in using electronic response like they're supposed to, not getting those can skew the numbers dramatically. And so that's what's happening with Dig Alert's ticket volume. I have to admit, when I saw these numbers, that I was not expecting that, and so it's going to be on the agenda for my board of directors meeting next week, because I think when we go live with that system functionality, we're just waiting for our vendor to build that we could probably expect a massive increase in no responses as well, because even though um, we'll get to this a little bit in a second, but even though our use of electronic response is good, where we have 1,300 members in Northern California. And if you look at raw numbers of deliveries versus responses, it's like 95% of them are on time, but there are still consistently 200-ish members every month who provide zero responses who should. So if those are the ones who are going to start getting 13 no responses, then I'm expecting a massive spike in my volume as well. So we'll see if that plays out. But it is a good thing in some ways, because it's forcing these utility operators to recognize that they can't just ignore that and wait for you guys to get to them when you get to them with a NOPV, but they're forcing us to, or we're forcing their hand, I guess you might say, by they'll call and say, "Why do you keep sending me this ticket?" And we say, "Because you haven't responded to it yet." And then it's another opportunity for education. And sometimes, and we've talked about this in the past, about the difficulty of maintaining contact information for those utility operators, especially small ones, when people leave or they wear a lot of hats and they don't realize some of their responsibilities. And so it's a good opportunity for us to say, okay, well, let's get you up to speed and we're going to start with your contact information. And then we're going to tell you the rules, make sure you're aware that these are your legal responsibilities. And it's good for you to solve this yourself for the Underground Safety Board before you get on their radar. So it's an anomaly from a statistical point of view, but it is forcing action, and that's a good thing. So, okay. Sorry for that long preface, but it'll make sense when you see some of the numbers. The other numbers are all common to how they've been as far as um, the other percentages of tickets, whether they're new and so forth. Okay, on the next slide is the ticket types, and so that shows you exactly what's happening there. The new and emergencies and ACE, those are broken down in a little bit different way just to show that emergency and ACE tickets, that's the area of continual excavation for Member Clausen's benefit, that those numbers are uh, in line, although kudos to, well, we'll get there in a minute, but we got a couple counties who are taking advantage more of the ACE ticket than they have in previous years. So, but of those no responses, so this is the second to the bottom, you see that Dig Alert's no responses in 2024, 14,000, but in 2025, 269,000. That's the massive increase right there. But less than 1% of those are manually created by the excavator. The rest are those system auto no responses generated. So we'll see how that goes. As if that number continues, or if some of those smaller entities that now are uh, shocked into compliance and doing what they're supposed to with that. So we'll see. But the other ticket types, nothing out of the ordinary there for either center. Okay, moving on to the next one, ACE tickets. If Member Voss were still here, I'd tease him a little because Kern County historically has been the leader in ACE tickets in the whole state, but Los Angeles has taken the lead um, because they're doing a lot of flood control work. So that's what's happening there. Santa Barbara, is that one a result of the fires? Wow, yeah. So anyway, some counties that aren't historically ag country are having more ACE tickets than they have in the past. So that's the ACE tickets for 2024. And in 2025, here's what I mean about LA County. They've already done 140 in Q1. That's double what they did last year, all of last year. And so they have the lead by far of any county. On the next slide, you'll see USA North's counties, Kern County, 276 in all of last year, which was by far the largest of our counties. And that's ag country, as you know. And Member Voss in particular has been instrumental in working with the Farm Bureau and getting the word out in the ag community about that. And then the next slide is our Q1 for 2025. And this is what I mean about LA County leaving Kern in the dust as far as they had 140 and Kern only has 30 so far. So we'll have to tease the Kern County farmers to get to it if they want to keep the lead that they've had for the past 5 years, or however long the ACE ticket's been around. Okay. Next is ticket volume by month. This is the 2024 breakdown. You saw this at each meeting throughout the year last year, so nothing especially noteworthy to point out for either center on that one. The next one is how Q1 has started. And again, you're used to seeing the orange bars be higher in terms of volume, where USA North historically does more tickets than Dig Alert. But this year, the script has been flipped, as we mentioned with the no responses. So Dig Alert's off to a very busy start that way. Okay, the next one is homeowners. This is how 2024 finished. Again, for both centers, less than 5%, really hovering around 3% for us, and 3 to 4%, and 2 to 3 for Dig Alert. So homeowners still represent a very small percentage of total ticket volume, but yet they cause a disproportionately high amount of damage, as we know. The next one is homeowners for 2025, and the trend no noticeable change for either center through Q1 on that regard so far. Um, This is delivering the tickets to the utility operators. Even when you see a few weird anomalies like 9 minutes in February when we had the system change and a couple others. But overall, nothing alarming in terms of how fast we get the tickets to the operators so that they can have as much time as possible to locate and mark those before the legal start date. So that's how 2024 finished. And the next one, 2025, this is for Q1. I didn't have the number for March at the time these stats were turned in, but March for USA North was 28 seconds. So again, nothing out of the ordinary. Um, some log jam on the no responses that all go out at, you may recall every ticket becomes due at 5:01 p.m. on the day of its legal date. So when the system sends all those no responses, that's why you see, sorry, can we go back one, Amber? Yep, right there. So that one, you can see that January, a little hiccup as Diggler got used to that, but still 4 minutes, 40 seconds, still nothing to be alarmed at as far as how fast utility operators are receiving tickets. Okay. Okay. This is tickets created online versus by telephone. 2024 finished in a similar pattern. Both centers over 80%, vote use fixed 81, or that was, sorry, 77 last year. So very high percentage done online, and USA North, we had our highest ever with 88% online. Then in 2025, you can see Dig Alert's tickets through the roof. This is, again, the system responses, that is being processed online. So those numbers are being shown in that category. So you can see in the like March, 188,000. So that's where those numbers are falling that way. Okay. Next we have call volume. This is the by month for 2024. Again, you saw this all throughout the year. The pattern continued as it normally does, with October typically being our busiest month of the year in both centers, and it was, or very close to, and then ramping down in November, December, as is common. 2025, um, similar pattern as we've seen in the past from a call volume perspective. I did mention this last time, but just to remind you, historically, as web volume has gone up, call volume has gone down, which is what we want at the center and at both centers, because then we can not need as many call center agents on the phone, and we can use that money in other ways, such as for marketing and education. But in 2024, we actually finished slightly up on call volume. So that was the first time we'd gone up in 7 years. It had been down, down, down every year, and then up 3% last year. So almost flat basically, but just a little bit noteworthy. So we'll see how 2025 goes, but we may have hit the floor in terms of, there is always going to be a need for calls. I realistically don't see that. No state is doing 100% web. Uh, Even, well, there are a couple of countries that are doing 100% because they don't allow calls, such as Australia. But in the United States, I just don't see calls going away for a long time. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, after call volume, this is the more detail by month for 2024. As far as the speed of answer for both centers by month, abandons, meaning the caller who hung up before we got a chance to answer, theoretically because they waited so long and were frustrated with having to wait. But you can see those numbers are all excellent. No busy signals, and how long each call took for the handle time or the call duration. So 2024, both centers did very well on those statistics compared to the CGA best practices. 2025, off to similar start. Both centers doing just fine in these categories. Nothing especially noteworthy from a call volume perspective. Okay, so this is the ticket types for 2024. The no overall, the two biggest ones, of course, are always new tickets, which you can see are shown in the dark green, and then renewal in the olive or whatever you call that color. Those are the two largest colors, and you can see that that pattern can continued through 2024. These are Day Alert's ticket types, but you'll see the exact same or very similar for USA North as far as those are the two that are the vast majority and small for all the others. So if we can go to the next one, this will show 2025, but this one you notice that now we've got the dark purple, or I'm not sure if that's just the projector, but anyway, a new color standing out that we haven't seen before. Again, that's the automatic no responses. So that's that's showing, providing some Utah Jazz colors right there. I like it. Okay. All right. And then USA North, same thing. Again, the blue, or I mean the green and the olive, that trend continued all through 2024 for us. And then also on 2025 and Q1 on the next slide, you'll see the same thing for the first 3 months, that it's about the same as has been. So nothing especially noteworthy that way. Design requests. Again, these are MAC design tickets, and we're going to get to this topic later, but just so you have some idea of volume of what's coming through USA North in terms of how often people are requesting. You can see that it's 10 to 12 per day on average if you count weekends and everything. So 10 to 12 a day. Okay. After that, and then same thing, we're continuing the same for 2025. Day Alert system does not track those at this time, and so that's why you see no stats for them right now, as they've mentioned in previous meetings. Okay, so now electronic positive response code usage. This is 2024, how that finished for both centers. Nothing especially noteworthy. What you saw throughout the year, those trends continued, and you'll see them when we get to the breakdown by month. But as far as which codes are used most frequently, clear no conflict by far the most, locate area marked, and no markings requested, such as for a renewal. Those are the most common. So this is 2024, how that finished for the first set of codes, and the second set of codes, 3 sets total, just because we can't fit them all on one slide. But that's the total for 2024. And then no response by the required time is the biggest one on that last slide. And then this one is how 2025 is starting. Very similar pattern, nothing especially noteworthy that's jumping out in terms of anomalies, but clear no conflict, the largest, no markings, and locate area marked. Those the biggest. Same thing, similar patterns as we continue on the second set of codes, much lower numbers on this page. The scale adjusts. And the last one, again, no response by required time, but you see that, again, those no responses, Day Alert's numbers being significantly higher than usual because of those auto no responses going out. So, okay, and looking at those by month, this is just showing that those numbers that you just saw in the year-to-date numbers, how those broke down by month in terms of was there an anomalous month. And you can see just at a quick glance of the color, no, there was not. They're basically the same ratios of green, yellow, blue for those 3 most common codes that I mentioned before through 2024. And then into 2025, you can see the same things, except that the red is now large because, again, of those no response by required time that I just mentioned. USA North, same thing. You see the similar numbers, green, yellow, blue, with a bit of a bit of red early in the year, especially, and then later on that some members who were not doing that got in line, and that was better. And then 2025, you can see that we're off to the. I wonder if that one might be a this color. I better double check that one. That one is. Have to double check either that or it got cut. Yeah, I wonder if maybe that one's supposed to be the dark blue. So I better double check that one and see if maybe I put numbers in wrong or else that color scheme got done wrong. Okay, sorry about that. But nothing especially noteworthy on positive response codes. Same thing for these. The ratio as far as which ones are on time versus this is the measure of if they're late, how late are they, and if they're on time. This is how 2024 finished, and then you'll see the monthly breakdown coming. But these were you can see which ones were on time, and then if they were a little bit late or a lot late, more than a day late. So that's how 2024 finished, and then 2025 is off to following similar trend for Q1 for both centers. And then this is the monthly breakdown of what you just saw of year to date for 2024. Again, the purpose of this is just to see, is there an anomalous month? No, the numbers are roughly the same month by month based on volume. So the ratios are roughly the same. So and same thing continuing into 2025. So those are dig alerts, and then you'll see the same thing for USA North as far as no anomalous month that something was way out of whack compared to others. Same thing into 2025. Okay, and I believe that is our last one. I think that's our last one. Yes. Scroll to that. Yep, that's our last one. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wingate. I guess we'll have opportunity for public comments. And any comments from the webinar or what?
There are no public comments.
Okay. Board, any comments?
Member Johnson, a couple questions. Having to do with the 2 minutes for the average ticket notification delivery, 2025. Normally you guys around seconds. Now we're into minutes. And I know you explained it, but I didn't understand, James. What cost is that for this year for 2025 on the average ticket delivery to go up to 2 minutes?
Sure. James Wingate, USA North 811. So the first thing you should know, I think the longtime board members know, but for the benefit of the two new board members, USA North and Dig Alert have different ticket systems. There's only a handful of vendors that create software for only 50 contact centers. So part of it is a system thing, so I can't speak directly for Dig Alert system, but Jim can explain. But I know on my side, we've had a couple hiccups throughout the year. In 2020, we haven't had 2025 has been good so far, Q1, but we had a couple hiccups last year in 2024 in which delivery to a certain utility operator would fail because of usually it was something on their end, but occasionally it was something on our end, and tickets would pause and be held in queue. And one time, I'd have to look at the report, but on one day we had one where they waited until something like 11 a.m. before from the morning. And so they sat there for 3 hours. And so those types of things mess with your average dramatically. So we do track that by day at our internally. And it's really frustrating because, you'll have most days in the month that are in the seconds, around 30 seconds ish. But then you'll have one day that really skews the average. And sometimes it gets to the point where that skews the monthly average and then the yearly. In fact, I did have a conversation with my vendor at the CJ conference last week. And one of their pointed questions was, okay, what's an acceptable threshold? Because we're talking about 2 minutes here. Is that really too long? Does do the utility operators need it sooner than 2 minutes? And are they really going to look at it sooner than, do they have people just sitting there waiting for the ticket to come in so they can jump right on it? And if so, what is the threshold, or, at what point is, what if, obviously we don't want to sit on it for an hour, especially if it's an emergency ticket, but, is 2 minutes a big deal versus 5 minutes versus 30 seconds? Because those might cause significant more work on the back end side for when things are not, ideally everything's automated, and we do millions of deliveries every year. I mean, we did 9 million outbound, and Diggler is probably 6, 7 million outbound. So that's a lot of deliveries going out. So we want to have everything be as smooth and automated as possible, but unfortunately, we still have hiccups now and then that cause problems. So that's my explanation for my side, and I would suspect it's similar, but I don't want to put any words, speak for Dig Alert for their system, especially.
Jim Schwalk with Alert. In January, we had some delivery issues with the changes with the auto no responses. So you see that 4 minute is really abnormal for us. Our vendor worked through those delivery issues. We also have internal reporting now that fires off every 15 minutes that if any tickets are in queue longer than 5 minutes, my member services people get notified. We have the same similar issues that James mentioned. Members' emails get rejected. A spam rule gets updated, and then we have a member sitting there airing for hours. The main cause of our delivery time is the auto no responses. At 5:01 p.m., we're dumping about 8,000 tickets all at once into the system. So if we take out that hour and a half window that all those tickets take to deliver, we're still around 20 seconds. But I believe it would be an unfair stat to remove those because those are no response tickets, so they should count in the average delivery time. We've added more threads to our delivery server. That's why you see it come down in February and March. So we're continuing to monitor the auto no responses on the impact of the system, and we're adjusting everywhere we can to make that faster.
Thanks. So what do you guys do with this data? Is it shared for any action? And I'm talking about the new response tickets, the ones that can repeat it over and over again. Is there anything that you're, any repercussions from that, or it's just that you guys just shelling out tickets, and is that information being shared with the board, safe board, or?
It is. Yeah, we send a copy of every ticket to them, including the no responses in real time. As well as, like James mentioned, it has enabled our member services people to get those questions from those members on why. So why are we getting so many? What can we do to stop this? Well, you need to be in compliance with 4216. Some of them still are saying, oh, I didn't know, but we're getting them, and it's opening up that communication and education. And we are sharing that with the board as well.
Are they contacting you guys back, or they get the ticket multiple times and
They are.
just complaining about just receiving the tickets, or what is it I can do?
It's more of what I can do to stop it. And then it opens up education of what the law requires of them and what they can do to be in compliance with the law, not only to stop getting the no responses, but to make sure that they're not on your radar as well.
So eventually you'll peak and then you'll start.
We're hoping that.
declining.
We're really hoping that we see the no responses come down over this year. So yeah, and of course it adjusts on volume as well. So March was super busy for us. You saw more no responses in March, but it's relative to volume.
And my last question would be, is how does this impact this report on the EPR response time?
It really doesn't, because if they're not responding, they're not responding. But if they respond late, it's going to be a member could respond late at any time, whether we set the no response or not. If that answers it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in other words, on this report, on the EPR report times, last page 37.
Mhm.
So if it's being sent multiple times and they haven't responded, it'll just fall into the bucket of more than one day.
It will fall into the bucket of never.
Never.
Yes.
The never bucket. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, James.
Thank you. Board, I would like, kind of my editorial, on the no response, what it would do to, working in the field as a contractor. You're waiting for, getting noti- everybody to respond and how it impacts you. And if you want to, yeah, you got two field, construction guys here that, yeah, if you have something to offer on that, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, time is money. If you have a crew sitting out there and you have 9, 10 guys, roughly $100 per guy, you know, you're sitting there waiting plus your equipment. It can add up real quick. And we'll start making calls. Usually if there's a utility shown or not shown on the plans and you come or you run into it and hopefully don't damage it, you know, we call right away, but we don't, if it's interfering with your conduit that you're trying to put in or any type of construction operation, you gotta get on it right away because they're just gonna sit there and it's like it's like a, you know, cash machine, man. And someone's gonna pay. Gave an example to Brittany where a couple gas lines were marked correctly. One was banned and one was active. They marked the non-active one. We found out later. Okay. It didn't mark the active one. We didn't damage it. We ran into it, but we had to wait and then we had to excavate alongside the abandoned one, which we found out later until we did a tie-in. It was less than 200 feet, but it cost the water agency roughly around $380,000 because we had taken out that 6-inch line, high pressure gas line, and be very careful. And the soil was bad anyway, but it costs a lot of money.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Member Storm. It's aggravating and getting to as a contractor in a weird spot of after 48 hours with no response, people want to go. You can't go to work, and everybody sits around wondering why. So um, having the operators get out there and give their responses is huge to everything moving forward and reducing the cost for the contractor, for the city, for the agency, for whoever you're working for, and figuring out a way to educate and get those numbers down. I think would be huge for the industry all the way around. I'm interested in taking part of that and seeing what I can do to help because it's when the system works better, it's going to work better all the way around on all sides, and I think we'll get less hits. Everything will be safer, and that's what we're here for.
Thank you. Thank you show the importance of everybody calling in and their responses because one guy can hold you guys up. Um, and it's just so important to get that message out. Um, that it would force the excavators to do to work without responses. I mean, there's training to keep you guys moving in the field, and they want to keep going and do their job right. And you're putting them in a very bad position to continue working when you didn't have a response. So it's just an important subject. I appreciate what you guys are doing and how you're focusing on it. Okay. I think that brings us to item 21 now. We started before. This is action item on modifications to the 811 notification center update. Staff will present a report regarding a request from the regional notification centers to modify the structure of their presentations to the board. So Ms. Hazelton, please proceed.
Good morning, Chair Johns, members of the board, and stakeholders. I'm pleased to introduce agenda item 21, which is an action item regarding modifications to the 811 notification center update. To provide a brief background, California Government Code Section 4216.2F requires that RNCs to provide their notification records to the board on a quarterly basis and report their technological advancements annually, which they have done. In January 2023, the board asked that instead of the RNCs presenting their metrics separately, board staff work with the RNC to develop a template for the RNCs to consolidate their ticket data into one standard format. Staff worked with the RNC to develop a template, and that new data reporting format was presented to the board in April of 2023. Since April 2023, the board has asked the RNCs to present the following additional metrics. Homeowner ticket data was requested in November 2023. Emergency ticket data was requested in April 2024. Area of continual excavation tickets by county was requested in September 2024, and design request ticket data was requested in September 2024. The RNCs asked staff to allow a change in reporting these items to a quarterly topic schedule to reduce workload and streamline board meetings. The RNCs proposed a schedule as follows. At the first meeting of each year, they present metrics and general updates from the previous calendar year. For example, in early 2026, metrics would be presented for each of the 12 months in 2025. At the second board meeting of each year, first quarter metrics and journal updates would be presented from January 1st to March 31st. At the third board meeting of each year, second quarter metrics and journal updates would be presented April 1st through June 30th. At the fourth meeting of each year, there would be no metrics presented, and they would provide updates on their education and outreach activities, which would coincide with our education outreach meeting that we do on a yearly basis. And at the fifth meeting of each year, third quarter metrics would be presented with general updates for July 1st through September 30th, and technology updates would be presented as well. Staff recommends that the board vote to approve the proposed schedule and does not have any objections to the RNC's request. With that, I'll turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lucy. We'll start with in-person comments. If you'd like to make a comment, please approach the podium.
James Winky, USA North 811. As Jamie just mentioned, and as is explained in the packet, we do a lot of work to get ready for your guys' meetings. I get it. You regulate us as well. And so we want to do our part, but just know that time we spend preparing for you guys takes away from time we spend helping excavators and utility operators and doing outreach and things like that. I was just thinking of just making note to my marketing and outreach team about members throwing suggestions about ASCE and Yukon and so forth. But some things I can delegate, some things I can't. For example, if we do something for ASCE, I would probably have to do that one myself, which is fine. I'm not saying I can't do that. I do things like that. But the point is, you have limited resources and only so many team members to do things. And so that's the purpose of why we wanted to ask to present our metrics less frequently, I guess, and the updates. So that doesn't mean if there's an anomaly, we won't, bring it to your attention sooner, but just wanted you to have the background in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate. Anything from the web? Any comments?
There are no web comments.
Thank you. So, would any member of the board just begin discussion?
Member Johnson, I have no issues with this at all. My only concern is I like the activity or outreach activities, but to hear it only on the fourth meeting of the year is for a recap. I'm okay with that, but I like to hear about things that you're planning to do. So whatever you got coming up in June, so that maybe we would like to participate in terms of attending. I think those are good things that we should hear, not on a regular basis, not on a, well, meeting type based on a quarter system.
Thank you.
Member Charlotte,
I really appreciate, James, when you, say nothing out of the norm. And that's, I think, what we're looking for as a board is you're going through the defined detail, but to bring those to our attention and say, hey, this is out of the norm. It's kind of like a blood test. You know, you have a range and your doctor go, hey, everything looks good, but hey, let's talk about your cholesterol. You know, that's what I would like for the one call centers is, you know, when you change with this new schedule, I'm all for it, but to include things like that, kind of will focus us in on, hey, all this other stuff is all within, you know, daily activity. Our two boards are, you know, looking at the detail and driving, you know, exactly what's going on. But these are either low or high, and here's the reasons. And then somewhere in there, I think we are concerned with what goals the one call centers have on if you're trying to increase, say, ACE tickets or homeowners tickets. Or what are you doing, and where are we at on that? Is it working? It's not working. Um, like the no responses, that would be something that's obviously affecting our ticket volumes. Is how's it going? Like, have we hit the peak? Like, maybe at the next meeting, know where that's going. That it started here, it's going here, and you know, it's not getting any better. Then we need to drive into, okay, who are the big no response people, and you know, do you need staff's help or the board's help in to you know to move that number? But I'd like to see, you know, a little bit more on that because that's really affecting numbers. Um, that's skewing the numbers in the south. And like James said, once you guys roll this out, it's going to happen in the north. So let's learn what procedures are going to help the one call centers. You know, because it might take, you know, us, you know, going out there and talking with them or bringing them in or we're doing something, but we just can't have these numbers just keep growing and they just stay like that and continue.
Okay, thank you. Um, I will add, Mr. Wingate, and likewise USA South, uh, if, the ASCE, I think is a good idea to, uh, include them. I think there's a miscommunication of, between the engineers and the construction people, which would be a great bridge to, uh, take on, and I would be happy to share my, being an ASCE member, and, they do have county chapters and things like that. I think it'd be a good opportunity. So, um, yeah, if you have time, let's pursue that. Um, any other board comments? In that case, we'll entertain a motion from the board to take action on the first. Oh, there's no violation here. Well, we're going to take action because this is going to be. We're taking. Yeah, we're going to make a motion to adopt this. And so, if somebody would like to do that, this would be the modified schedule. Yeah. No, somebody, one of you guys did. I'm the facilitator.
Member Charlotte would like to make a motion for the region notification centers to modify the structure as presented. Member Clausen, second.
Hey, Madam Secretary,
Take point of clarification, Chair. Sorry. So the things that we suggest are like, really, Charlotte, are we incorporating that or is that, because that's not on the modification? So would that be incorporated or no, we're just not gonna move forward with that?
If you'd like to include those suggestions, then I would recommend changing the motion to include those suggestions of having the report out, stay consistent on the education and outreach efforts, and then call out any um, changes or things that the call centers are tracking. And I believe the board also identified, remember Charlene identified that he'd like updates on specific call center goals and if they're making progress towards that goal or not.
okay, so Charlotte, if you can add to your comments to the motion, or
All right. Let's see. um, So I'd like to make a motion that the Regional Notification Center modify the structure um, as presented and include um, the um, the goals that the one call centers might be working on to give the board an update on the tracking of the no responses, its progress, and setting up a, um, the norms outside of the norms um, um, on key on the key stats. What else do we want to call upcoming education to be presented to us on what might be coming up in the future.
I'll second that.
Okay, I appreciate you putting that together. So that would be our motion. Well, you have sufficient guidance there. So have a second on that. So we'll now go to a vote.
Charlotte,
Yes.
Clausen,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Sorum,
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes and moving on. So next item before the board is an informational item, 2024 results report. Staff will present the 2024 report, highlighting the board's activities for the year and the results of those activities. And I'm not sure, so Ms. Hastings, okay.
Thank you, Chair Johns. I'm happy to present to you all the 2024 results report. The results report highlights the work done by the board each year and includes activities performed to execute the board's work plan for that same year. Activities include tasks undertaken by the Education Outreach, Policy Division, and Investigations Division. I will not go through everything in the report due to your familiarity you all have with a lot of the work, and I will highlight a few successes from last year. The board engaged in several outreach events, including with multiple stakeholders, operators, and excavators, most notable of which was the mock strike at the Safety Summit at the Safety Center, which included various education courses about safe excavation. A key takeaway from the education and outreach meeting was the interest shared by many attendees in increasing the use of GIS to map utilities to increase locating accuracy. The board continued the No 811 pilot program designed to streamline the intake and processing of complaints excavation without contacting 811. The board received 100 notifications under the pilot in 2024, at which 93 were assigned for investigation. Again, while much more was accomplished this last year, items that I highlighted on touch the good work of the board. Building on the accomplishments of 2024, the board will continue to work with stakeholders to fulfill the board's mission of improving public and worker safety. With that, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Hastings. So we'll start with in-person comments. If you'd like to make a comment, please approach the podium, provide your name and organization. And same goes for the web.
There are no public comments.
Okay. All right, so any members like to proceed or begin with a discussion? Or pat ourselves on the back on anything, or? Okay. So seeing no further discussion, we'll proceed to the next item. We're on to item 23, coordinated statewide education and outreach workshop update. The next item before the board is an informational item on coordinated statewide education outreach workshops. Staff will present a report summarizing information received during the workshop conducted by the board's Education and Outreach Committee on January 16, 2025 and February 27, 2025. And Ms. Reese, Did I say it right?
Close, Mr. Chair. It's present.
Present.
Thank you, and good morning, Chair Johns, members of the board, and stakeholders. I'm pleased to introduce agenda item number 23, an informational item summarizing the Education and Outreach Committee's workshops held in January and February of 2025. This item is part of the board's discussions to establish a framework for coordinated statewide education and outreach. To provide a brief overview, Government Code Section 4216.12b1 requires the board to coordinate education and outreach activities that encourage safe excavation practices. At the board's 2024 annual education and outreach meeting, staff recommended that the committee conduct a series of workshops with stakeholders to better understand training issues from different perspectives in the call before you dig process. The committee is facilitating workshops that provide opportunities for excavators and operators to come together, share insights, and foster long-term collaboration. Today's agenda item summarizes information from excavators, operators, and other stakeholders who participated in these workshops, which were held January 16th, 2025 and February 27th, 2025. Each workshop engaged with stakeholders to identify root causes of excavation damage and discuss solutions to improve excavation safety training. Both workshops were available to attend in person or virtually, and attendees included representatives from call notification centers, utility providers, construction firms, professional associations, government agencies, and municipalities across the state. The first workshop was held in January, and 66 stakeholders attended this workshop, including both in-person and virtual attendees. The Public Works, utility owners, and utility operators stakeholder category had the largest representation. Professional excavators had half the representation of Public Works, utility owners, and utility operators. This workshop presented for discussion several safety concerns related to underground infrastructure excavation. The methodology used to categorize these concerns combined both national data from the Common Ground Alliance Damage Information Reporting Report and insights from stakeholders. The workshop discussions emphasize the need to tailor training efforts for different types of excavators, such as professionals versus homeowners or landscapers, and to help address specific regional challenges, such as locator shortages in California and access issues on private property. The workshop helped provide a better understanding of the underlying safety concerns from the perspective of excavators and operators. The second workshop was held in February. 30 stakeholders attended the event, including both in-person and virtual attendees. The utility owners and utility operators stakeholder category had the largest representation. Professional excavators had less than half the representation of utility owners and utility operators. This workshop focused on how stakeholders could collaborate to provide solutions to the main safety training issues presented at the first workshop. Workshop attendees used an online tool to choose an area of focus from the top 6 most common causes of underground infrastructure damage, as reported in the Common Ground Alliance 2023 Damage Investigation Reporting Tool. The poll engaged 28 participants who had joined the workshop in person and virtually during the time that the poll was shared. Through that poll, they identified failure to notify 811 as the top safety concern for focused discussions on solutions, priorities, resources, and communication strategies that could help address that excavation safety training concern. The workshop discussions emphasized that stakeholders were looking for content to be created by the board that can be distributed and used for training by operators and excavators. Participants also provided perspectives and ideas on how the board could better partner with regulatory, licensing, and permitting agencies to expand awareness of safety practices and laws. This workshop helped provide a foundational structure that will be used for the next workshop. To summarize the key findings from these workshops, workshop attendees selected the underground infrastructure damage root cause, failure to notify 811 as the focus of discussions for the 2025 coordinated statewide education and outreach workshops. Participants asked the board to develop safety training materials related to failure to notify 811. And participants stated that they would use and distribute those materials in their own outreach and safety training efforts to improve awareness of the 811 process. The committee will continue this series of education and outreach workshops focused on failure to notify 811 throughout 2025. The next workshop is scheduled for May 2nd. Staff will present the outcomes of stakeholder collaboration, including stakeholder input and materials developed by stakeholders at the board's annual education and outreach meeting. With that, I return the floor to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bissett. Okay, we start with our in-person comments. And our web comments. There are no web comments. Okay. Seeing no comments, would any member like to discuss?
I have one comment, and thank you very much. The one thing that scares most contractors is their workman's comp mod rating. If you have an accident, it goes over one that'll restrict you from doing work with agencies that are care about safety, to be honest with you. And we care about that quite a bit because we do a lot of emergency work. I didn't see any contact for insurance companies. And I think if you would contact them, they would be all on board because they all have their own safety consultants for each insurance company, and they come by your office and they want to see your JAS reports and what you're doing about safety and who you're sending to classes and such like that. So I think if you would include them, you'd get a bigger response. And it would be very helpful for some of the smaller contractors that really don't think about that. But, you know, I can tell you every contractor that's in business now, I see a dip in their price on insurance. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. DRIR is a big item for larger companies to get involved. So that's really important. And insurance companies are members of the Common Ground Alliance, so make up the organization. So I think that's a good suggestion. Okay, so seeing no further discussion, we will proceed to the next item.
Mr. Chairman, comment, please,
Okay.
for me. I just want to kind of reference that out of the committee, one of the things that was during the polling session was failure to notify 811. And if you look at what we did yesterday on our PVs we had yesterday, it was around no tickets to the 811. So I think that the committee is on the right track to hit those points where we can make a difference. So I appreciate your time and efforts in working on those things. Thanks.
Let's take just a real fast break right now. We're at an hour and a half, so 10:31 we'll take a break and be back for
10:40.
reconvening. We're good on the web. Okay. Back in business. So I have item 24 Roman now. Sounds similar to previous one. So um, next item on our board is an informational item on the 2025 Education Outreach Meeting. So is that okay? And Ms. President, please.
Thank you, Chair Johns. I will now introduce agenda item number 24, an informational item to solicit board and public input for topics of interest for the board's annual education and outreach meeting. I'm excited to announce that the education and outreach meeting is planned for September 8th and 9th, 2025. Staff is inviting the public to share with the board what they want to learn about this year. Those interested in speaking at the event can submit their proposals through email and include information about themselves and details about their topic. The public can also submit ideas through email. Those interested in speaking at the meeting or contributing an idea can email the board at digboard@energysafety.ca.gov. That's DIGBOARD@energysafety.ca.gov. Please send your proposals or ideas by April 25th, 2025. We look forward to receiving and considering input to help shape the experiences at this event. With that, I will return the floor to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. President. So we will start with in-person comments, followed by web comments. Mr. Cleaver, yes.
Thank you, sir. Steve Kleber with PG&E. I just wanted to say thank you very much to the board and staff for creating an event that is intended to bring people together, to share ideas, to share topics that have not previously been discussed with the regulator in this manner. I'm really excited about this new format and the opportunity that it brings. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So any comments from the web?
There are no public comments.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you for your comment, Mr. Cleaver. And would any member of board like to discuss? I will say that attended a CGA conference recently and had a presentation on the DIRT program and stuff that was really informative, and I was real pleased to be a part of that. So I think it's an important subject, and we can all heed to learn what these shortcomings and identify targeting the those areas with the low-lying fruit. So sounds good.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment. Yeah, I thought this is it is a great opportunity, and I agree with Mr. Cleaver for both one call centers, regional notification centers, along with CARGA to participate and get together and support all this. So great opportunity for everybody to collaborate.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll move to the next item. This will be item 25. So the next item is before the board is an information item, the electronic positive response, EPR workshop update and code comparison. Staff will present a report that provides information learned from the board's ticket process committee March 3rd, 2025 workshop, and a comparison of the regional notification centers recently implemented changes and the board's suggested EPR code revisions and removals. So, Ms. Mason, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Jones. Agenda item 25 is an informational item providing an update on electronic positive response workshop and a comparison of recent EPR code revisions. To provide a short background, EPR was implemented in California through the Dig Safe Act and became mandatory in 2021. While EPR was designed to enhance communication between excavators and utility operators, stakeholder feedback and board discussions have highlighted ongoing challenges related to code clarity, redundancy, and usability. To address these concerns, the board directed staff to evaluate the effectiveness of current EPR codes and explore potential revisions. At the December 2024 board meeting, members discussed updates regarding revising existing EPR codes, which aimed at addressing the earlier concerns discussed. The proposed EPR changes aim to provide clear indication of locate and mark while retaining the familiar description of the original EPR codes. The EPR codes, which were redundant or ambiguous, were proposed for removal to ensure clarity and effectiveness in excavation communication. During the December board meeting, staff learned that there was development in EPR code revisions from the regional notification centers earlier in 2024, and those changes were due to be implemented starting January 1st, 2025. Based on the feedback and comments received during the December meeting from stakeholders, board members determined it was essential to gather additional feedback on EPR and to further align expectations on the shared goal of effective EPR communication. The board directed staff to hold a workshop to obtain stakeholder input on staff's recently proposed EPR code removals and revisions. The Ticket Process Committee held an EPR workshop on March 3rd. During workshop discussions, stakeholders highlighted several challenges and potential improvements to enhance efficiency and clarity in the excavation process. The three topics covered included discussion about EPR code usage and practices, proposed categories of codes into clear, marked, and unmarked, and proposed EPR code removals and revisions. So starting off first with EPR code usage and practices, a few highlights included excavators often face delays due to EPR codes lacking clear legal backing, raising concerns about whether operators can lawfully postpone work. Stakeholders emphasized the need for clearer EPR codes for excavators, specifically asking for some sort of flag to indicate whether an excavation action is complete or still ongoing to improve communication. Challenges are faced by operators when adapting their internal systems to align with standard EPR codes, as many have internal system codes tailored to their specific business needs. Some utility operators only use a limited set of EPR codes that align with their internal policies. EPR codes are changed. When EPR codes are changed and updates are made, it can cause mapping issues between the different ticket management systems, leading to communication delays with the regional notification centers. The second topic, proposing categories for EPR codes. There were no objections to the suggested categories of clear, marked, and unmarked. And lastly, the third category of EPR code removals and revisions. Highlights include several of the codes recommended for removal by staff at the December meeting had already been removed by the RNCs that were implemented January 1st. The ongoing discussion now centers on the comparison of the remaining codes that were proposed by staff during the December meeting and the codes implemented by the RNCs in 2025. Code concerns are codes 31, 34, 40, 41, 51, and 53, as noted in the staff report. Staff requests the board to provide feedback on the proposed EPR code removals and revisions in categories based on the workshop findings and the recent changes made by the RNCs. Staff recommends that the board direct staff to work with the regional notification centers to 1, finalize the review of the remaining codes under discussion, again, codes 31, 34, 40, 41, 51, and 53, and determine whether they should be retained, revised, and removed. Finalize a proposal for refining the EPR code categories. And lastly, staff recommends that the board direct staff to provide a revised proposal to be presented at a future board meeting. With that, I turn it back over to Chair Johns.
Thank you, Ms. Hastings. So we'll start our in-person comments and followed by the webinar web comments.
Jim Schwalk with Diggler. A little background on the EPR code changes that were made were recommendations from the Ticket Continuity Committee. That is a joint committee between the RNC's staff and the RNC's board of directors. We have a joint committee between the two states. And in the past, the TCC has not wanted to open up the meeting to those outside of the RNC's board of directors. And also, when we developed the EPR codes originally, the EPR codes, while they don't technically have a category, we did try to group them in tens based on the type of category they are. So clear no conflict is in their own group. When it's marked, it's in the tens or 20s. So we do have them grouped by a category, so to speak. But that is the only way that our system could have done that currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on the web?
There are no comments.
Thank you for your comment. And any members like to begin some discussion on it?
Member Charlene. So as we work through these EPR codes, we put them out there, or the one call centers and the two boards put together kind of the first shot at what they believed were the appropriate EPR codes to use. And then this last go around, they kind of looked at the usage, and that also was a driving force that do we really need a code? And the decisions on some of them were it's just not being used. However, I just want to point out that I think they were all valid. And though they came off of the list, there's still an ability to call the ticket or call the contact person on the ticket and explain what the issue is. Because I know traffic control is still, that's a safety issue. That's, something very important that goes on out there. I know delineations does not match the work area. That's very critical, and that was removed. However, I'm assuming it's probably going to come in at bad address, incorrect street or locate information. So there's an area that it can be captured. But still, even if you use this code, I want to encourage all utilities that if they choose these, it never hurts to make a phone call to the contact person on the ticket and kind of clarify it even more of what your issue is and what you're looking for and how to get these resolved. And that we continue to keep working on this and kind of hone in. I know the perfect would be, probably like 3, but it's going to take a while to get to, reducing more. But I just want to point out that, this is a big task of these EPR codes. And then the other one is kind of touching back on no responses. So we could be really good at this and we still have some people that's not even responding at all. And that's a concern. And I just want to clarify that I do want to track that to see what its progress is. And any help we need to take a look in, and it may take more than just a one call centers to actually fix that problem, because it does go into Mark's not being out in the field and delays and all that kind of stuff that we've heard today. So that kind of folds right into this no responses kind of comes out when this isn't used.
Member Johnson. I just want to get a clarification. I just heard what Jim just mentioned, And another recommendation was to ask staff to work with the RNCs. Did I hear you correctly about what the boards are saying, the RNC board, in terms of collaboration with staff?
No, the collaboration is perfectly welcome. What I was stating is that joining a board committee has to be at the board level.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was my question. So, all right. So anything else? Discussion on that? So seeing no further discussion, we'll proceed on to the next item. This will be item 26. Next item presented to the board is an informational item on proposed regulations for current area of notification and membership termination update. Staff will present a report on public comments received from stakeholders and the public collected during the 20-day comment period on proposed regulatory language related to areas of notification and membership termination information. Ms. Hastings, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Jones. I'm pleased to introduce item 26, an information item regarding proposed regulations for current area of notification and membership termination. To provide a brief background, the DigSafe Act requires operators of subsurface installations to be members of a regional notification center. Despite this requirement, it was brought to the board's attention that entities were terminating their membership, and it was unclear whether their termination violated the DigSafe Act, and more importantly, who was responding to locate and mark requests regarding the former members' buried infrastructure. What emerged from board discussion of this termination issue was the important role of what is commonly called shapefiles. This is the geospatial data that RNCs rely on to know which members to send tickets to for each proposed excavation. Proposed regulatory language governing current geospatial data for excavation notifications and membership termination was presented in September 2024 and was revised in December 2024. At the December meeting, the board agreed to open a 20-day informal public comment period to receive written stakeholder feedback before finalizing language and initiating a formal rulemaking process. This agenda item focuses on the public comments received on the proposed regulatory language presented to the board in December. Staff received 3 public comments, one from Cody West of West Tech Systems LLC, one from Ann Diamond of Dig Alert, and one from Charlie Nobles of Southern California Contractors Association. While generally supportive of the proposed regulations, stakeholders raised concerns about the proposed language. Some concerns include, number one, the term geospatial polygon. One commenter was concerned that the term was not well understood in the industry and the definition of area of notification should either be amended or the term geospatial polygon further defined. Number 2, Southern California Contractors Association and Dig Alert raised concerns with why the Underground Safety Board needs to receive updates when members change their areas of notification. Dig Alert points to the administrative burden of their system not currently being set up to track changes in areas of notification, let alone asking the reason for those changes. Southern California Contractors Association echoes Dig Alert's concerns and raises the additional issue of the subjectivity of asking members to provide a reason why they have removed territory from their area. Dig Alert raised the concern that their system is not equipped to export the areas of notification to the board. Dig Alert President Ann Diamond suggested that Dig Alert could set up a portal for viewing the areas of notification, but they would not be able to export and apply with the language that's currently in the proposed regulations. Staff recommends the board discuss the public comments received to date. Specifically, staff asked that the board provide direction on whether to keep, remove, or amend any portions of the proposed language in light of stakeholder feedback. With that, I turn it back to the chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hastings. We'll begin with public comment. Anything on the web?
There is one raised hand.
Okay. Okay, so for those on the webinar, use the raise hand button, dial *5, and then in your name, unmute yourself using *6. So our commenter is welcomed onto the meeting.
If you're speaking, we are unable to hear you.
So that was the comment. Unable to hear Ms. Hastings, am I correct?
Correct. We are unable to hear.
No, was the comment that we were unable to hear Jamie Hastings, the policy manager, present that item, or we are unable to hear the online?
We are unable to hear the online comment from Todd Bloomstein.
Does Todd still
Alright.
have?
We'll give it a second to work on it.
If we're unable to hear Mr. Bloomstein's comment, if he could please email us and provide that in writing, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, looks like we will move on. And so, Mr. Bloomstein, if you can hear me, then you can email that. We can we'll move forward if we can't hear him right now. Okay. So hearing that, I guess we'll put this up at the board. Would any members like to begin the discussion on this?
Member Charlene. So I think the intent, from what I remember, on membership termination or reducing the size was the issue that would we have abandoned lines? Because if someone had a big gigantic area and they had lines out there and now said, hey, I'm only needing this, I want to drop all this. The question was, well, did they sell it off? Did they pull it out of the ground? What happened to these lines that you had covered? Maybe it's just, oh, we over notified and we never had something there. Okay. But if it's no, they're abandoned, well, the next question is, are they still in the ground? And if they say yes, it doesn't matter if you're not using them. They're in the ground. They need to be, in my opinion, they need to be marked. And excavators need to know that it's out there. So, and same with, someone that wants to terminate their membership is, again, what are the structures? Are these underground structures still underground, buried, or have they been removed, or does somebody else own them? And it's not really if somebody's increasing their size, that's great, but that was what we were trying to capture. So I don't want to, maybe it's just a question is when someone wants to terminate or someone's reducing, is this leaving any facilities that will not be, are there facilities in this area reducing? And if there are they being located by someone else? You know, kind of getting that question versus just letting this go through, and that's how we have abandoned facilities. Is someone will come across these areas. So that's my concern, is the abandoned portion of what could come out, because some people absolutely, utilities feel that they are responsible, and others feel we don't have traffic anymore in them, or they are no use to them, that they're just kind of giving them up, and it's not the responsibility no more, which I don't agree with.
Definitely understand what you're saying on the abandoned lines. It's complicated. There's ownership issues and um, especially in certain areas, industrial areas of California, it's there's no hasn't been a abandonment procedure defined, statutory. There's common practices being done, but for the most part, the owners would like to get those off the books and hide from any responsibility. Obviously, there's a cost involved. A permanent life of these lines that are left in place, even though they've been abandoned, filled with, uh, uh, you know, earth, mud, uh, concrete, what have you. So it's a complex issue, and I do think we need to pursue that. Um, so I had forgotten exactly what uh, guidance you were seeking from the board, um, but I definitely agree that we need to provide you what you need. Could you go over that again, Ms. Hastings? What you'd like from us?
Yes. Staff recommends that the board discuss the public comments received to date and provide direction on whether to keep, remove, or amend any portions of the proposed language.
Member Charlotte, so can we work with the notification centers to just express our concerns of potential abandoned facilities? How um, confident are they that when these things are being done, that that's not happening? Because maybe in their discussions when we're talking with them, that is, you know, talked about. Um, but just simply sending in corrections that's kind of automated into a system that just takes them off without any conversation, I think is open to what I suggest, which is leaving abandoned facilities out there, because they just reduce the size. Maybe it was in air. So for someone to actually say, okay, you reduced it, um, maybe it's in the same process that they have to check a box that says, and I'm not leaving any facilities that are buried that will not be located. Just something, if we can work with them, is there a compromise of our concern of abandoned facilities by reducing the size, um, or terminating their membership? Um, that's all I have.
Okay, I do agree. I mean, it sounded like there was some pushback on the board being involved in micromanaging, uh, you know, proceed doing that, but I think Member Charlin's concerns are important, and so recognizing when somebody is um, taking off the ranks and, of of um, the list of operators and asset owners, uh, we need to know about it and document that. So I think there's pursuing that would be a good objective for moving forward. Anybody else?
Member Shard, just to clarify, I don't think as a board we want to know um, if they sold it off, if they did all this other thing. So it's the one asking the one call centers, um, if these things are going to be abandoned, that does come to us is, no, we are reducing this. We don't feel we're responsible and we are leaving. But okay, that needs to come to us. We need to look at that and say, you know, do we agree with that, that these facilities that are out there, they're buried and no one's gonna mark them? You know, that's what I'm thinking we're trying to capture. And so if there's something where one customers are feel, because I don't think they want facilities out there that are not being marked. So it's, if they feel confident by their questions that they ask, the process they have, that these will not be abandoned, I'm okay with that. But if we're not even asking the question and they have the ability to, like I said, automatically just shut stuff off by updating their maps without the question even being asked, you know, just to clarify what we're looking for and then how to help, you know, because in my past, in my experience, facilities have been removed out of the ground to get away from that. Locating was done to find these abandoned facilities and they were physically removed from the ground. So it has been done to remove those out of the ground, and obviously they were not responsible for something that's no longer there. So it has been done, but so that's my concern, is not knowing, you know, just to be a pest and want to much information come to us, just that big concern of abandoned facilities.
And so the question is what are you doing with the facilities that you previously had? Is that the question that we're asking? Because here's my dilemma. If it's abandoned, you're still responsible for keeping records of it. And you keeping records, you can't terminate your membership with the one call center, with the regional notification, because you still got to be responsible for marketing or letting them know that you have facilities, but they're abandoned. And so there's a couple questions here. Number one is, you know, from the one call's perspective, you know, the capabilities of sharing information with us. And number two, they've offered an alternative to have access to their system to make that determination, to view it, and we can look at it and make that determination. But I'm still confused in terms of if you have facilities in the ground and you're trying to terminate your membership, you'll never be able to terminate your membership based on what I understand. You'll have a membership forever, until you remove that facility underground. So if you're, and that's the question you're asking, that if we could have something stated that are you moving your facilities or are they gone, abandoned, what's happening with them? And then that way, staff, we can do at this point is pursue the next steps.
Yeah, I think that is the question, is if somebody did make that decision that, hey, we're getting out of this business, we put in this many miles of underground structure and we don't want it no more, it was something we didn't do. We want out of this. We would definitely hope that would come to our board and we'd have some say so. Now, how to handle that is permanent structures that are marked out there, permanent mark, you know, we can get into what that is, but I'm thinking if somebody's reducing their size just because it was over coverage and wasn't theirs at all, that's absolutely fine. There's no facilities that are being left. If there are structures that are being left and they're sold off, it's no, they're going to be covered because we sold these off. It's now a new company. They're taking over responsibility. They don't have to explain all that. They can just check the box and update their structures are being, you know, marked and not left as abandoned and nobody's going to be marketing. That's kind of my concern, that if we do get one of those, I think it needs to come to us so we understand what it is and what possible solutions are. But what shouldn't be the solution is we just close it out and, oh, well, we deal with it down the road, because now it turns into, you know, construction or a project someday that happens out there and they start running into this and nobody knows what this stuff is and how extensive it is.
Mr. Johnson, I had this case in a couple of my other states where I was totally vacating the territory, the area, and I had to, with the local regulatory agency, I had to go out and, like you mentioned, remove the terminal boxes. Most of it was aerial, so we had to take down the aerials, the poles, and those type of things. So, and some of the boxes that were on the ground, I had to go back to the one call centers and remove the notification area. So those things can be done, but in this case, I didn't have anything underground other than the terminal boxes, which once I did that, I had the removals and the signs and things that you just mentioned. I had to go through that part of it. So we still need validation that I think if you are abandoning stuff and taking it out the ground and moving boxes and terminals and stuff like that, I think we still need to know about that. So
Sure. I mean, just one more. I think Amparo's brought this up many times about having kind of a database of, because there's a lot of stuff that excavators kind of come across and nobody claims it, yet it's there. And you will not track down the owner. And so I think we all are in agreement that if this comes up, let's talk about it. I think we can come up with a solution, whether it's a database or just how to handle it. But, you know, we need to at least take an attempt to try to stop some of these abandoned facilities that are out there. And some of them might be by reducing the size or saying, hey, I no longer use these and I don't want to be a member. That could be one of the ways we could address some of these abandoned facilities.
Yeah, so as Member Johnson said, it's complicated and complex, and it really is. Or I can think of an example uh, of a company that basically sold their assets to another company, and you get enough LLCs and smaller companies and things like that. That ownership is just so convoluted that nobody has responsibility for them, and there's several networks of pipelines that people are running into all the time. Uh, if they were abandoned properly, there's guidelines in liquid pipelines to the state fire marshal has requirements and such that uh, so kind of lost the ability to regulate even that. Um, and so moving forward, I think we can't miss the opportunity uh, to document and to put some type of requirement into these members that do want to leave. Um, and then partly is documentation, but also um, like you were saying, Member Johnson, it is if you put something underground, it is for life unless you remove it. I mean, it's going to be an obstruction the contractors are going to face constantly. Um, yeah, I don't know how we would do about having a database of all the existing underground unknown lines. I think there's some technology moving forward that you'll start seeing underground facilities. They won't be claimed, but starting with a database that would to start identifying what they were and who has responsibilities is a start. So,
yeah, Member Johnson, and I think this is true. Well, I know it's true, but in Nevada, Mr. Wingate, there was a law put together in Las Vegas where you couldn't, uh, you had to remove everything in the ground. Uh, if you abandoned it, there was no such thing of leaving anything in the ground. You had to do the work to remove it, which is very costly for an operator to remove it because you had to repave and put it back the way they want it. And so, from an operator perspective, this whole deal is very costly, and nobody wants to dig underground and take their facilities up because the cost to repair it, put it back, is going to be, outrageous. But I do recall maybe about 17 years ago, there's a legislation that passed, and I think it was in Las Vegas, probably predominantly on the strip, that you can't leave anything in the ground. You had to remove it. So
yeah, in California, there's several agencies that are insisting upon taking it out, taking lines out. Um, however, there's a two-edged sword. Do they want to tear up Main Street and everything to do that? It comes back, and so it is a um, certainly an argument that comes to keep lines there and to document them. That's why I think we've said that people like to get away and hide and get out without having to address it. But yeah, we can't let that happen. Um, and an example, working on projects, Port of Long Beach right now has some major um, work going on. They want to remove everything. However, they do have allowance that the operator would come back, propose uh, why they couldn't remove it due to complexities with impact to the community and things, depths of lines and some other uh, reasons they will allow things to remain, but they are seeking the documentation of it. So,
Member Johnson, you keep in mind, well, think about this. I mean, with everything, with the fires and stuff, you want everything back underground. And so once you put it on the ground, you pretty much have them forever. So it's interesting.
that's what we're facing. It's a complicated underground, and it's definitely unsafe, and we need to make sure that we safely address those and solve those problems.
Sure. Members, usually when you have a utility in any area, city, county, or state, you have to pay, or you have an underground easement and you pay a certain amount. I don't know if when you have an abandoned facility that they go back and tell them it's abandoned or not. I know of a oil company that's no longer going to pump oil anymore, and they have miles. I also know of a project where they're going to utilize the abandoned, or it's not, they don't want to use abandoned because then it'd have to go through some other regulations, but suspended idle, yeah, gas lines, 220 miles, it can be put water in it. And that was through the State Lands Commission, so they know about it, but I don't know how we would, when someone does a dig alert, usually they have, in a city, they have their own facilities and such like that. They also would have documentation for any abandoned lines that were in that city. So I don't know if you want to hold them responsible for providing that information or not. It could be very difficult because we have so many non-responses anyway from some of these smaller agencies and cities that they wouldn't even know. But somehow it's got to be coordinated.
Yeah, I remember Johnson in every year because operators have to pay taxes. And when you have to pay taxes on stuff, you want to eliminate your tax bill. And they do that. They turn it over to what we call back to the permitting agency. Okay, now you own it. I have nothing to do with it. Lower my taxes. So that does happen with the utilities.
It's definitely still underground, and a future guy digging doesn't know the difference. So um, um, I do in California and 4216, we do designate abandoned lines and markings. So which the circle A you see on the markings and such, um, it's at least a start. I appreciate that, California, I think we're taking the lead on identifying abandoned lines, and some of the other states are doing it. But as we all see, it's a complicated issue. So with that, I think we gave you some direction on where we're at. And
Mr. Chair, I have a few questions.
yes,
So on page 4 or 5 of the packet is the proposed language. And I believe we talked about 2 conditions. So B, the first condition is placed on the member. And so this is any member. It's regardless if they're terminating or not. So any member that changes their shape file, this language is proposing that they would provide the reason to the Regional Notification Center for why they're changing their shape file. Even if they're an active member, they don't need to be terminating. That's the condition placed here. I believe Member Charlin stated the intent of that was to get at abandoned lines. I know that Dig Alert raised a couple of questions about that I believe were echoed by Southern California contractors, where if a member changes their shape file, one of the concerns that was raised was it may cause excavation delays because who is supposed to determine if that reason is valid or not? So if we could discuss that further, I believe the intent when we were writing this language was we would not determine if it was a valid reason or not. We would just collect it if we needed it later on for further use. And as member Charlene stated, it was to better understand when utility operators were abandoning lines. So if this language doesn't work, should we change the question to focus directly on abandoned lines, or do we like this question or this condition where they need to state the reason why they're changing their shape file? And then we can work with the RMCs to overcome the concerns of excavation delays and placing the call centers in a position where they're determining if that's a valid reason or not.
Member Charlotte, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you would do a lot of stuff. I think we should focus in on, does this result in abandoned lots? Does this result in ownership? We want to leave ownership of these and they're not going to be located, which would make them abandoned. Versus just getting all the reasons why they want to do these changes. So I don't think that's as valid as that's the big concern I think I have of when they do something like this.
So Member Johns, on that, I guess, request maybe the board to consider an application that the member would be to change their status, that they would complete, which would address what their assets are going to be. And that question would come up, does this result in an abandoned line? With that, I think it might prompt that if it does raise that flag come before the board, we can do that. So I guess further discussion and having the staff look at it, see if there's a way to do that. We don't put undue issues on the RNC, but at the same time, we would flag and identify those.
Member Johnson, so you're asking for an application to be filled out, is that what you're asking?
I would say that you're going to be filling out a form to say we request to basically, to end our membership and address their asset. You'd say, what assets do you own? That's the reason we're being sold. We never get calls. It's been abandoned. You name it. It'll give us some guidance as to what's going on with it. Because some of them are valid that, hey, we don't even get calls. We don't have assets anymore, or something like that.
But that's only in that scenario, correct?
Pardon?
That's only in an abandoned scenario, right? Because there's other reasons why we changed an area notification.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah, because we want to shrink the size of it. We don't have facilities in that area. So we're just cleaning up our area of notification.
And cleaning it up. And that's why I would say that might not require the board to involvement. It makes sense. Getting more efficient with the calls and such.
So just doing this with, when you have facilities that you're leaving or abandoning, you want an application. So
I would say for any time you're trying to even make the changes, it's just the process you do it.
I've gone in and changed my area of notification, and it had nothing to do with because I could do it on a daily basis because I have changes every day. And for me to sit there and fill out an application, that's not something an operator has time to do, particularly when I'm just cleaning up an area where I don't have facilities. I'm just narrowing the scope of my notification area.
So I'm guessing you're saying you're going to fill out this thing. It's going to say just check for cleaning up, reducing areas, no assets in this area.
It's just.
Well, how do you do it now then?
I just go in based on the utility, based on the system I have. I create a map, a geospatial map or a map, and then I send it to them. They take it and they send it to them, and they go on and place it in their system.
And so when you send that to them, if you send something saying no changes, no abandoned lines at that time.
No, I just send them a notification. This is my new area.
Yeah, but if you cut out half your facilities in downtown LA and move them,
I'm not.
Huh?
I don't, because
you wouldn't do it.
Right, do it because it's abandoned and still in the ground. I didn't remove anything. So,
Uh-huh.
and I can't because I have to keep it on my records.
Yes.
Right. So that's not going to happen. But the part where you're saying that to fill out application every, because I think by law we're supposed to do it every year anyway, right? To um, at least minimum, at least once a year. But some of us change daily, monthly, particularly gas facilities, installing new stuff. And to fill out application, not necessary.
Well, my suggestion is really just presenting to staff to come up with a solution, because those are certainly valid, and you're the expert, and I am overstepping my knowledge to do it, but at the same time, that's what we'll do if we can have staff look into it more.
Member Charlotte, so I don't want to micromanage the one call centers. I want them to have their process. I want just to ask them, do you have a method, a checkbox, a question, a pop-up that asks, when you're making these changes, will this leave facilities um, abandoned, unmarked? And if their answer is no, then it's never going to come to us. I just want when they get some of that answers that says, well, yeah, we have facilities that are no longer us because they're abandoned and they're not ours. And we've told the city and all that stuff. They'd have to say they are. That would come to us through their normal process of trying to discover somebody trying to attempt to say, I don't need to be a member anymore, and they're not my problem no more because I don't own it. I went bankrupt, and that needs to come to us. So that is what the burden would be: is if you get this checkbox or unchecked that says there are abandoned, it needs to come to make us aware so we can look into what the situation is, and then we can kind of come up with what those remedies might be that they never can, or there's a database, or there's permanent markings, what those might be. But I'm not looking for the one call centers to put more forms together to send them to us. I mean, we just want to know if you guys discover abandoned facilities that are not going to be marked out in the public's right of way, that information makes its way to us. And what are the circumstances of these facilities that would be abandoned?
And I think you need to include change of ownership because that's the key right here. That's what hampers the regional centers. It's a change of ownership, and the new applicant doesn't call in to take ownership.
Right, but if they, you know, communication A sold them to communication B, communication B is now going to mark them, that wouldn't make it to us because it's going to be marked just by somebody else. If B says, "Oh, no, I'm going to buy it from you. I'm going to take care of half, and I'm going to take this grid and say, I just want the profitable areas. I'm going to abandon all this. This is making no money. I just want this." And all these facilities are going to be abandoned in place. And that needs to make it to us that
That's happening.
once they made that decision, are we okay with that? I think the answer is I'm not okay with that. You know, I believe in abandoned facilities, but that's what I'm hoping we could get from the one call centers, because I believe the one call centers would not want that also. So maybe there's a way they could capture that, but now they turn that over to us to say, what our opinion is on what they're trying to do, leaving abandoned facilities in place.
Thank you. It's very helpful. So on the proposed language, is it fair to say that we're comfortable with the language as is, except for section B, we need to work with the regional notification centers and come back at the next meeting with different language and another solution?
I think that's the case, yeah. Yeah, not being a formal form like I was mentioning, just a check with something saying no assets remain or something might be as simple as that. But yeah, staff, if we can work with the RNCs and come up with a good solution for both parties, and that the information gets back to us if anybody's leaving their facilities are in place without any future locating or documentation.
Thank you.
Okay. We're on to item 27. I've lost track and take this.
Chair Johns. Staff would like to revisit the public comment from Todd Bloomstone, if we have time.
Yes, we do. Let's go ahead and so we're going back to public comments. This would be from the web. Mr. Bloomstein, are you on? And please proceed.
Okay, Todd Bloomstein, you have been unmuted.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear?
Yes, sir, I hear you.
Excellent. I appreciate the consideration here. Todd Bloomstein for the Southern California Contractors Association. On this item, just simply want to say that we don't think there's a need for a reason to be given here. We appreciate and understand the desire of the board to understand and find the source of abandoned lines, but we would just caution the board that we fear this could lead to some confusion and possibly excavation delays. So we appreciate the consideration. Look,
Kind of drifted away. If you can speak a little louder.
sure. Simply just wanted to say that in short, that we look forward to continuing to work with the board. We have issues with the reason portion, and I believe it was subparagraph B, and that we believe it could lead to delays in excavation. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
No, thank you, Mr. Bloomstein. That concludes that item. We're moving forward. I think we're doing good on time. So we're on item 27, unmarked lines. So this next item before the board is an informational item on unmarked lines ticket data. Staff will present information gleaned from the examining ticket data regarding unmarked lines encountered during excavation and what information is not captured as part of the current ticket process. And Ms. Branneman, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the board and stakeholders, I'm pleased to introduce agenda item number 27, an information item regarding ticket data about unmarked and unclaimed lines. While abandoned lines have been discussed since the board's inception, recent focus has shifted to issues and solutions regarding how unmarked line solutions differ when unmarked lines are claimed by an operator versus when those lines go unclaimed and cannot be identified. To gain a better understanding of the scope of the issues, staff looked at exposed ticket data to see what we could learn from information already available to the board. While current ticket processes did not provide much useful data about unmarked and unclaimed lines, staff identified in ways in which current ticket processes could be leveraged to gather and share important information about unclaimed lines. Today's agenda item looks at what information can be known about unmarked lines from the ticket data. Big Alert and USA North both have a means of recording unmarked lines that are exposed but not damaged during an excavation. Staff examined these exposed tickets to see what information was available to answer questions about how unmarked lines are resolved in the field. Looking at the ticket data, it became clear that the ticket system is not currently set up to collect or share data about unmarked lines, but the mechanisms are in place to potentially use the ticket system to help solve problems for unmarked lines. Staff recommends that the board discuss the scope of the issues presented by the unmarked and unclaimed lines and direct staff to continue exploring possible solutions to these issues.
Thank you, Ms. Branneman. So once again, we'll start with in-person comments. Mr. Cleaver, please proceed.
Good afternoon again, sir. I just want to say thank you. Again, this is Steve Cleaver with Pacific Gas and Electric's Damage Prevention Program. I just want to say thank you to staff for considering the definition of abandoned facilities. As a gas operator, we have a clear definition of abandoned facilities in federal code, but when it comes to other assets and asset types, the definition of abandoned has become essentially a lay term for people to define on their own, whether or not it's abandoned. We do have active or inactive facilities, but the determination of abandonment and the subsequent actions to be followed it differs utility operator by utility operator. And I'm grateful that staff is considering that and potentially proposing some clear guidance and definitions around abandonment. I also thought it might be helpful for the board to understand what the process looks like when we, as an operator, are notified of an exposed facility that is unknown. In most of those cases, we'll be notified through a ticket from the one call center from USA North generally of an exposed facility, and that will trigger a response for a locator to respond out to that location, to review their maps, also to review the facility type that has been uncovered. Most of our locators are also trained in pipe ID. It's an operator qualification as a gas operator to identify that specific gas asset. However, operator qualifications are limited only to gas and petroleum products. So type of pipe ID does not necessarily apply to other types of assets. But they will evaluate the asset that's been uncovered, determine whether or not it is the type that would have been installed by our utility, going back all the way back to the 20s. At times where we can't identify it by our GIS platform, we'll also dive into previous as-builts of what was installed in this area before, how many pipeline replacement projects have gone through this area, or upgrades to the electric system, and try to find that information, work with the excavator on maybe other things that they've identified as well, but really make this a partnership to hopefully understand that. Unfortunately, on occasions, we will have a coworker who goes out and says, no, this isn't ours. It doesn't appear on any of my maps. And we'll later determine through repeated contacts from that excavator that it is something that was previously owned by us that doesn't appear on any of our as-builts or current documents based off of legacy issues that have happened in years past. Obviously, that's unfortunate. It's not something that we want to see for the excavator to have to go through that, to have work stoppages to identify those as well. But I do think that over time, with continued collaboration with the board and stakeholder groups, that we'll get to a better place. And it really starts with making incremental steps, like things as simple as definitionally identifying what an abandoned facility is beyond a gas asset that's defined in code. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Glaber. Jim, please proceed.
Thank you. Our concern is more regarding the impact on the center of what if an excavator were to provide a polygon of where an unclaimed line would be. We don't have a mechanism for that right now, so we would have to change the system. But more importantly, we're concerned that if the excavator is providing that information and we send it out on the ticket, it might cause confusion wondering where the line may be located and if it's marked, if it isn't marked, because excavators providing the information could be wrong and mistakenly giving us information on an active line instead of inactive line. So we're concerned about that. The other part of this is if an EPR code was added for unclaimed lines, we're worried that operators could abuse it as an excuse not to mark. These are just a few of our concerns from the notification center. And then in January of 2023 is when we separated from damage exposed to damage having its own class and exposed having its own class. On exposed lines, we do send as much information as we gather from the excavator: size, color, type, whether if it's been nicked or anything, it doesn't go as an exposed, it automatically goes as a damage. So these exposed lines are unmarked lines that they come across. And kind of what Steve said is we're hoping that all members, operators, look at that information and determine whose line it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the web?
We do have a raised hand from Todd Blueson.
Okay, are we ready to go? If so,
Yes, Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Forgive the delay. There's some button pushing that has to occur before I can speak. Todd Bloomstein, on behalf of the Southern California Contractors Association, just simply want to say we support the spirit of the effort and think a two-way EPR process might be an avenue to pursue here to try and increase communication between excavators and operators with regards to abandoned lines. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
Thank you, Mr. Bloomstein. I don't know. I didn't hear. Did you say two-way GPR? Could you repeat that? Oh,
Yeah,
APR. Okay, thanks.
yeah,
APR.
Mr. Chair, the staff report mentioned several times a two-way EPR in the report.
EPR. Thank you. I couldn't quite hear that. Thank you, Mr. Bloomstein. Okay, no further comments. Would any member of the board like to discuss? So Member Johns, can't go without talking about abandoned lines. I've been involved with the CGA best practices, trying to put together plans to happen, and it is so complicated to, but documentation, and then just as others brought up, just the complexity of trying to get out and locate, and then the credence put on old abandoned records and things like that that you just don't know. So, just going back to staff, we just have to keep working, and I think we've been taking the right approach that we just have to continue. This is going to be an ongoing process, seeing where others in the leader, other states and others that are, coming up with their regulations. We'll just have to keep following what we see, and at the same time, trying to be innovative and come up with plans. As technology changes, there's going to be more information, and we may be able to really define and even offer some legislation at someday for this.
Member Johnson, question, in terms of the data that we're looking at or using, are we using the damage exposed data from the one call centers? Because those are the ones that are not damaged, but they've just been exposed and they may have not have been identified. Because there's some tickets that go out that says unknown. They'll give you a description of the ticket, of the facility, and to kind of narrow it down a little bit. But on those exposed ones, they don't necessarily know what type of facility it is. So it helps. Because I remember the same way Mr. Cleaver does, we used to dispatch out and make a determination. We'll look at our maps while the person's on the phone. We're usually contacted by the regional notification center. And if we need to dispatch, we'll go out based on the description that's given by the excavator or contractor. We kind of help determine whether or not it's our facility or not. But the damage exposed tickets are a good starting point, particularly where they don't know who's it belonged to.
That is the data that we were using. Part of the issue that staff encountered was in the way that the data is captured in the ticket process, it makes it difficult to use, and that there's no feedback loop to identify when an unmarked line was claimed or not. It's part of the reason for the recommendation of potentially looking at two-way EPR is to create that feedback loop to have more information.
No further comments. What are you lacking then, Ms. Brannaman? Or would you like to hear from us? We can.
No, I believe
Okay.
we have the information. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to the next item. Item 28. I think we'll keep moving through and see how time goes. So we'll definitely keep on a couple of more of these items. So next item before the board is information item on geographic information systems, GIS implementation, regulatory considerations. And Ms. Brannaman, could you please proceed with this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to present agenda item number 28, which outlines regulatory considerations for the implementation of GIS as part of the statutory responsibilities under the DigSafe Act. This item builds on direction provided by the board at the December 2024 meeting, where we agreed to pursue regulatory development on 3 main GIS topics. So geospatial data accuracy, GIS data content, and metadata storage. Since January 1st, 2023, statute has required operators to map all new subsurface installations using GIS. However, the law does not specify how accurate this data must be or what kind of data needs to be collected. This lack of clarity poses a real challenge. While some operators use advanced survey grade tools, others collect data with lower accuracy devices, such as smartphones. Stakeholders, including CARGA, have made it clear that there's a need for baseline standards. To that end, staff has worked with the GIS committee to identify 3 regulatory concepts. The first would be horizontal positional accuracy, while exploring whether operators should be required to collect location data within the accuracy of 100 millimeters, which is about 4 inches, using decimal degree coordinates captured in the field. This would ensure consistent accuracy across installations, especially when it comes to trenchless methods. The second is the data content requirements. We're looking at requiring GIS records to include more than just pipelines. So if tracer wire, marker balls, etc. are present, then they should be mapped. For pipelines, records could also include attributes like pipe wires, warning tapes, etc. As high priority lines. High priority gas or hazardous pipelines should be mapped, and GIS records should notate that as a high priority status. Metadata storage. Metadata tells the story behind the data, how it was collected, when, and by whom. When considering requiring that operators maintain metadata with GIS record, it would include the reference frame, coordinate system, equipment use, and the name of the person attesting to the accuracy. This helps ensure transparency and supports quality assurance in future use. While none of these ideas are finalized, they provide a solid foundation for the basis of discussion. These concepts has also been informed by international standards, including ASCE and the British Standard Institute. So by aligning our work with these benchmarks, we can build the system for both practical and forward-looking. And with that, I turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brannaman. So we're open for public comments. Please proceed.
It's me again, sir. Steve Kleber with PG&E. I just want to express appreciation for the staff in evaluating this, for opening up to public workshops, and for taking a kind of a slow, methodical approach to make sure that we do it right on the first time. I know that I've had conversations with staff in the past about the decisions that we make today, metaphorically with this process, will potentially impact the industry for many, many years to come. And that making sure that we consider all different utility types, their installation, and the end user. While I represent a utility operator for the locate and dam retrenchment side, we also have the excavator side of things as well, and the asset knowledge or asset management folks. So there are multiple different perspectives, and from a management of change perspective, it's going to affect multiple people. And this is just one company that I'm talking about, and I'm sure that there are going to be several others that have some of the challenges as well. and just making sure that we do it right and that we're capturing that data and we're giving people enough time to make the appropriate changes to ensure that we have the right data in there over the course of time. So grateful for the somewhat slow methodical approach, also for being transparent with the requests, and looking forward to continued discussion and making sure that we're considering all of the different end users of the data, not just for the way that it's structured for today, but looking into the future on what the damage trench industry might look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaver.
James Wingate, USA North 811. I just wanted to, I know Member Johnson and Member Charlene probably remember this, but this was part of SB 865, if I remember, when this took effect, requiring utility operators to map new subsurface installations with the GIS starting January 1, 2023. And the language was left vague on purpose because the goal was baby steps of let's get them to track their assets digitally. But now it's time to do the nitty gritty because there's a cost associated with this. And so, what type of precision, like a staff recommending 100 millimeters or about 4 inches, to me, I think that's excellent. But that's easy for me to say. I run a call center. I shouldn't be claiming expertise about, as a utility operator, what that means to me, or as an excavator doing utility work, since that'll often, I suspect that'll be the case, is that excavators who are doing utility work will be tasked with gathering this information to give back to their client. I'm just guessing, but either that or they leave the trench open and then the operator comes out and captures GPS within 4 inches before the backfill happens. I mean, or I guess you could do it on top of the asphalt, depending on how wide that trench is. But if it's big, it's going to be tricky. So there's massive cost implications and process implications, but nobody has this solved across the nation. This is a hot topic nationally, as at the CJ conference last week. Lots of discussions about mapping. There's a best practices subcommittee specifically working on mapping issues. Nobody has this solved. So this truly would be an innovative solution by the state of California if we get this in. So it's ambitious. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate. So any web comments?
There is one raised hand from David Woolley.
Okay, when he's ready, he may proceed.
Okay, thank you. I would like to second James Wingate's comments. I think he's exactly right on, and I want to thank the board and the board staff for moving in this direction. This has been a law for a couple of years now, and I certainly think we are on the right track with the recommendation here, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wu. Any other comments?
There are no further comments.
Okay, so thank you for your comments. Any member of the board like to begin discussion?
Chair, Member Sorm, I wish I had 4 inches various. We don't have that, to be honest with you, when you do underground construction. It depends on the diameter also, but water lines, gas lines, you're going to have tracer wires, so they'll know where they're at. And they usually have elevations that you have to adhere to. Okay. Storm drains, sewers, normally they don't have tracer wires, but they do have as-built, and you have the agencies that you install that for to check your grade and your horizontal alignment. So it's all there. And it's pretty easy to get within 4 inches. Right now we're doing a 10-foot wide, 6-foot high box, and you got to be within a tenth or less we try to do 1/100th of a foot, this much. And it can be done. I don't see 4 inches as a big deal, to be honest with you.
Yes, Member Johns, I kind of balk at 4 inches. I think the goal is to get there. Just as Mr. Wingate mentioned, that kind of going from a broad look and then hone in on it as things move forward. But I think just in the way utilities are now, yes, as we document lines in the field, if you do get within 4 inches, it's a good target. I wouldn't legislate that or make it too prescriptive right now, because once lines are buried or as a contractor puts in a facility, there is latitude for movement facing the unknown in the underground, that the alignments do shift. And if you're getting accuracy of, millimeter accuracy, you're conveying to the future person 20 years down the road that it's accurate, and it could very well be 4 feet away because of a movement and things like that. So I'm hesitant to get too prescriptive and tight with those tolerances. I think the markings in the field are pretty, they're 18 inches and such. So yeah, that's my only comment, is I think we just don't want to get too prescriptive. And then also during construction, yeah, a lot of companies have surveyors and stuff, but if you're doing a repair or something in the field, your guys are going to be using the phones and things like that. Depends on your satellite signals of how accurate you'll be and your locations and things like that. So I'm just hesitant to make it too tight too soon. Guess we're moving on. So seeing no further discussion, we'll proceed to the next item. Item 29, potholing standards, potholing activity matrix, and pothole survey. Next item before the board is an informational item on potholing standards. The potholing activity matrix and potholing surveys. Staff will presents a report that includes a matrix to be incorporated into potholing standards to help excavators understand the variety of potholing methods, and a note of survey currently used in progress for further developing the matrix and potholing standards. So Ms. Brannaman, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to introduce agenda item number 29, which provides an update on our continued development of potholing standards. This item builds upon the direction the board provided at the September 2024 meeting, where there was a clear interest in understanding not just how potholing is conducted, but why excavators pothole and how we can better support safe practices across different types of projects. As part of this effort, staff developed the potholing activity matrix. This matrix is designed to be a practical tool for the industry, particularly for everyday excavators, to help them choose an appropriate method for exposing buried facilities depending on the type of work they're doing. It links various excavation activities with the recommended exposure methods, such as hand tools, vacuum excavation, or more advanced mechanical means, all while aligning under the requirements under Government Code 4216 and Title 19 regulations. This is a part of a broader initiative to fill the board's statutory duty to help develop safety standards that clarifies the roles and responsibilities before and during excavation. Our work is informed not only by law, but also by the data that we collect from feedback in the field. For instance, last year, we released several surveys focusing on potholing, depth information, and the spacing of potholes for parallel facilities. This feedback was used to revise these draft standards, and it continues to inform our work. In early 2025, we released a new survey asking stakeholders why they pothole, how they pothole, and how they interpret utility markings where multiple facilities on the same type are indicated. The results of this survey and the follow-up interviews we conducted will feed directly into the refinement of both the matrix and our draft standards. With the view of the matrix, we view the matrix as flexible but grounded guidance document, one that accounts for projects as varied as homeowners' fence post installations to long pipeline construction projects. We also recognize that there's situation where the tool beyond hand digging may be warranted, and we've left space in the matrix to continue exploring where advanced mechanical exposure may be appropriate. At this time, staff requests the board discussion on the context of the matrix. We're particularly interested in your feedback on whether it captures the right range of project types and methods, and if there's other approaches or categories that we should be considering. This is an opportunity to help shape guidance that reflects both the letter of and the spirit of the Dig Safe Act and ultimately enhances safety across California. Thank you, and we look forward to your feedback.
Thank you, Ms. Brandeman. Once again, starting with in-person comments.
Good afternoon again, sir. This is Steve Cleaver with PG&E. I had the opportunity at CGA to speak to Ms. Branneman about this particular topic in the matrix. Speaking here today, just looking for a little bit of clarity on the matrix itself, on what the purpose and who the target audience is. When I look at the matrix that I have pulled up in front of me, it has at the top, it has the activity type, or in the case of the top left box, it has homeowner, project, and private property. And on the left, it has the potholing method. And for homeowners, it has recommended as the only for hand tools as the method of excavation. However, if they've contacted 811 and we have a utility marked out in the area, it's not recommended that they pothole with hand tools only. It's actually part of the requirement, the statutory obligation to use hand tools. And while I understand that it's very difficult to create a matrix that takes into consideration all of the different potential criteria, but just asking that that we use a little bit of caution and seek feedback, which is what's happening here today, on when we're communicating with homeowners that may have a very, very basic understanding of what the law is, and they're looking for guidance on, hey, how am I supposed to do this? And they see something as recommended, not as an obligation, because they haven't taken the time to go and study what the requirements of the law are. I don't want to put something in their hands that gives them confidence that they're doing the right thing and saying, well, it's only recommended that I pothole here. Maybe I can use that trencher to go across the top of the line, or for whatever their homeowner type activity is. I just want to make sure that we're giving them good, solid guidance and we're not potentially leading them astray with what their obligations are. And that's just one example of in the matrix of things that I think that needs to be considered with your audience, how it's going to be used, and then how it's going to potentially get in their hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaver. Okay, moving on to the web. Any comments?
We do have a raised hand from Mr. Bloomstein.
Okay, Mr. Bloomstein, when you get through all the button pushing, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I again appreciate the courtesy. SC Todd Bloomstein, representing the Southern California Contractors Association. We took a look at the matrix and we specifically asked contractors if we were missing any types of excavation. And we did receive some responses, one of which was, of course, on the horizontal portion of the matrix. There is a point excavation. We just want to make sure that includes very large point excavations, because you can have large, I believe the term is caissons, and other big I-beam pile driving I-beams as well as drilling for bridge support. These are extraordinarily wide and far bigger than a fence or a signpost. So that would be one issue that we would suggest some refinement. The second one was large highway abutments. Those are essentially the parts that connect a bridge to the ground itself. And then finally, under pavement milling, to make sure we include full depth reclamation. Pavement milling could be interpreted just to be the top 2 to 3 inches of asphalt on the surface, when full depth reclamation goes all the way down to the engineered portion, the substructure, if you will, of a roadway or a highway. So that's some of the feedback we received from SCCA. We also discussed the idea of a need for frequency as well in this discussion. Frequency being in any given distance, how frequent should a contractor, an excavator, pothole to find that underground utility? And then finally, there was a comment, kind of a general comment about the matrix itself, that while the key has always listed in the matrix, there is no place where always is referenced in the matrix itself. So that was just a curious observation that SCCA had. Once again, Mr. Chair, members, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Bloomstein. Those are all good comments. Thank you all for your comments, and any members like to discuss?
How come you keep on looking at me?
You know, you're the pothole guy now, so I'm looking forward to your comments.
We do a lot of potholing. In fact, I think we're doing 20 today. The method of potholing depends upon the material, not only the overburden, but also the material, the pipe material, and the depth. You're not going to go out and use a vac truck to locate a utility that's down 20 feet or 15 feet. You have to excavate that. So the matrix is good, but in reality, it depends on those characteristics: depth, type of material, not only the overburden, but the pipe material also. You got to be careful about what you're digging next to. And as far as the frequency, that is usually dependent upon the agency that wants you to pothole out there for design or even construction. And if you're just doing a crossing perpendicular, of course, you're only going to do it one time where you're doing that. But it's good that you do this matrix. I think it's important for people that don't do it that much, but for people that are doing this regularly or in the underground business, they do what comes natural to them and from their experience.
Well, thank you, Member Sorum. I'll fess up to the fact that it became a matrix was probably part of my doing, because we had kind of addressing things kind of with one focus of a project. And like you had said, there's just different projects you're going to be doing. One thing in potholing in my business is potholing to find an open slot. And so you'll be, it's one way to do it. And so frequency is important if you're running a line down a street for a long ways. And if you're looking for open slots versus trying to find individual known utilities. And then you just kind of, as we alluded to, the different type of project. So a homeowner is a specialty. We want to see if we can include that and be consistent. And so I think you're the right guy for the right time here, Member Sorum, to take this and move forward and identify. You can see, I think these were all good points by our comments. And yeah, I think to give feedback to the excavation community that is a wide range and they need to have some feedback. So we're making progress on this. I think a few years ago, we were talking about, mechanical tools versus hand tools, and then changing back to Yeah, vacuum excavation is considered mechanical tool, and there was a lot of confusion. We started defining, you're running in and you're going to be using a roto hammer or something like that to get through. These are big issues that this matrix needs to kind of take into account. And then, yeah, and I liked Mr. Bloomstein mentioned always. Yeah, we should have some always on that certain things. So unless anybody has any other comments, I think we're making headway. So that's your feedback. All right, we'll keep plowing through here. I think we're getting there. So item 30, next item before us, board, is an information item on planning and design standards, planning and design process chart and comment period. The staff will present a report that includes a planning and design process chart that shows the responsibilities, relationships, and action for in the process, and note the in progress public comment period currently for further developing the process chart and planning the design standards. So, Ms. Brannaman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to introduce Agenda Item 30, an informational update on the board's work to develop planning and design standards and support safe and efficient underground infrastructure development. As many of you are aware, one of the key gaps in California's damage prevention framework is a lack of standardized process for planning and design phase of construction projects. Unlike excavation work, which requires notification and response under the law, early stage design efforts are often take place without consistent access to utility data, and operators are not required to respond to informal requests. This creates unnecessary risk, as we've seen in real world cases like the San Francisco gas line strike that destroyed a restaurant and a nearby residence. In that case, the project relied on street signs and manholes to identify underground utilities instead of confirmed utility records. A structured planning and design process could have changed the outcome. To begin addressing this issue, staff created a draft chart to map out responsibilities, relationships, and actions involved in the planning and design process. It's a visual tool meant to support future standards and act as a common reference point for discussion. We've launched a public comment period to gather feedback from stakeholders on what the chart includes, what may be missing, and how it can evolve to reflect real practices and needs. The comment period is currently open and ends April 21st. This work builds on a number of prior efforts, including a statewide survey of designers and operators and a demonstration from Pennsylvania's Coordinate PA system, which manages design requests through the Regional Notification Center. This system showed us how a formalized coordination supported by clear roles, timelines, and data standards could lead to safer and efficient projects. We are now exploring what a California-specific version could look like, potentially a planning and design ticket system that includes a standardized request formats, required response timeframes, and minimum quality expectations from utility data. Today's item is not a proposal for formal regulation, but rather a chance to update you on the progress and to gather input. We welcome your thoughts on the draft process chart, particularly any responsibilities or interactions that should be added or revised, and your suggestions on where staff should focus next in our outreach and standard development. The goal is to build a framework that improves transparency, accountability, and safety throughout the planning and design process. Thank you, and I look forward to your feedback.
Thank you, Ms. Brannaman. Do we have any public comments on? And I'm glad to report that Mr. Cleaver will comment.
Thank you, sir. I would just encourage the staff to consider extending the public comment period on this, primarily because of the timing of it. With the CGA conference and the preparation that was for that, people that are actually in companies that are engaged in CGA not being available for a full week And then engaging all of the different stakeholders. As you're aware, this is National Safe Digging Month as well. So there are a lot of initiatives that are ongoing that are drawing people's attention to other things that have been planned for an extended period of time. So for the public comment period, I would respectfully request that it be extended to give enough time for us to gather stakeholders to review and to provide insight and feedback on it. I've personally myself had the opportunity to look at the, we'll just call it swim lane diagram for the workflow. And I do have some personal thoughts myself, but I don't want to engage in those without having an opportunity to seek feedback and perspective from those that are actually doing the work outside of the operator area. I do have a hope and a desire that in a future state that all utilities would have maps that are accurate enough that we would just be able to pass out and say, hey, here, go by these, and share that information. But obviously, we currently don't. This is not unique to the company that I represent, but I think that it is kind of universal for utility operators to have some concerns about the accuracy of their maps. I would say that PG&E provides polygons to our or shape files to our one call centers that are very large. And we do that because we want to be notified and send somebody out as a mitigation for potentially having incorrect information on a map that says, hey, we're getting somebody out there with eyes on to see this, that's trained in this, to provide that information. And that's because we have facilities that are very old and go back a long time, and have gone through the transition of different mapping systems from being on microfiche in the past all the way to multiple times of different transferring to different electronic databases and different, even including GIS now. So there are definitely some challenges that will come with this. I think that it's worth doing. Somebody at one of the conferences I went to a while back had said something that was profound, and it's kind of changed my personal way of thinking. And it's that our maps are always going to be garbage until we're required to rely on them. And so forcing us to rely on these to become better at it is something that we're challenging ourselves at PG&E to do. Not just for gas, but for gas, electric, for power gen, and for fiber optic, and making them reliable for our field to better support our coworkers, and also the potentially the end users of the information, not necessarily the maps, but the information that it represents on locational data. So I think that there's a lot to be done here. This is another one of those that I think a very collaborative environment is going to be necessary, and moving too quickly without the right stakeholder engagement is potentially going to result in an undesirable product. So making sure that we have the right stakeholders, and if we don't get that stakeholder engagement, that we're willing to put a pause on things until we're able to get those people to the table to have that discussion, I think is going to be important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaver. Mr. Wingate.
Hello, James Wingate, USA North 811. A couple of tidbits about this from the CGA conference that I learned last week. Ms. Brannaman mentioned the Coordinate PA program. I spoke to my counterpart there and from Pennsylvania, and he told me they have 92,000 projects, active projects currently in that system. I thought that was impressive. Tracking that large of a scale. Of course, ours would be much larger with California, but the point is that it's happening at scale successfully, supposedly. So I don't mean that to be skeptical. I've not heard any other perspective, so I can't say that authoritatively. But that said, this is important as far as, the earlier comments about innovation. Very few states, if any, have this process solved. So this would be a massive step forward in California and would be great. But to give you an idea, I know some of you know this already, but this is affecting every day in the field work in terms of, right now we have excavators complaining that they're not getting marks on time. But then we have locators complaining that they're getting large requests when the digging is not really going to be that large. And so this process gets to the heart of fixing the whole system in terms of how things are going to flow, and that'll be great. I lost my other thought, but it was along these lines. So this is good. This is good work, and I appreciate, the center line, the requirements about whether or not things have to be delineated with the center line instead of corner brackets if the project is trenching or boring. That is a real obstacle that we hear about frequently. Excavators are very frustrated, and utility operators too. So this is, as Mr. Cleaver mentioned, doing it slow and thoroughly. You kind of get one chance to do this right. I remember the other thought. I once was at an engineering conference, a DOT engineering conference, and an engineer was giving a session about how, or a presentation about how to create tickets to make the utility operators think that your project is shovel ready and you're digging right now when really you're still in the design phase, because he had learned that over time utility operators will ignore even regular dig tickets if they suspect it's for design purposes. So the fact that it gets to the point that an engineer is giving a session to other engineers about how to bypass the system says that things are broken. So this will be a great clarification for the whole process. And I was speaking to Ms. Hastings yesterday, and she mentioned that she hadn't heard of any feedback yet about this. So last night I sent out about 30 emails, including to UConn, ASCE, AGC, my entire board of directors at USA North, and some other contractors, specific contractors that I know are large. And and a couple of vendors who focus in this area of design work. So hopefully we'll get some feedback flowing in from important stakeholders. But I agree with Mr. Cleaver's comments about if we could add another week, that would probably be good because everyone's busy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate. So moving to web comments.
We do have a raised hand from Mr. Bloomstein.
Okay, once again, Mr. Bloomstein, if you can proceed when you get hooked up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Todd Bloomstein for the Southern California Contractors Association would echo the comments previously. I'm going to send out an email and the document to the ACEC, their lobbyist, try to get this on their radar. That's I think it's the American Council of Engineering Companies, as well as the American Institute of Architects, California. They have a lobbyist as well. I'll send out the notice, the safety board notice over to both those lobbyists, try to get them to engage as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bloomstein. Any other web comments?
There are no further comments.
Okay. Seeing no further comments, would any member of the board like to discuss? Begin discussion?
Sure, Member Sorn. When I used to do design work, the rule of thumb is when you're when you're in the planning phase, you look at the conduits or any type of obstruction underground within 2 feet clear of what you're trying to do. And of course, that depends upon the size of material or the size of conduit you're putting in, stuff like that. But that's both horizontal and vertical, 2 foot clear. And I can tell you that every dollar you spend in engineering will save you $10 out in the field. So it's very important to do your planning ahead of time, and also your potholing ahead of time. And then it's also very important to make sure that every city and agency has a utility coordinator, people that will watch the other utilities, because it'll save you hours, hundreds of hours when you're doing your design, and save you money out in the field too if you don't do it right.
Board Member Charlotte. Yeah, this item is very important. we've been working on it for quite a while, and this will prevent damages. It will help in the locating and helping with the volumes of tickets that come out there and the delineations that are made out there. Um, because when you really get down to it and you're talking to these excavators who do mark huge areas, and you finally get enough meetings with them, you get down to nobody provided me with the information. So that's why I'm asking for everything. And there is no time to do designing through locating. That is costly, both for the person paying for it and for the people trying to do it. And someone down the road is not getting their tickets done because you're held onto a project that in most times it's a lot of overmarking, and then there's customer complaints, and then there's issues with it. So this is really important. And I guess I like the progress we're making. I just want to throw out that we think about how we're going to put this in the law, because if we put this nice package together and we don't have compliance by all of the utilities that are requested to provide this in a timely manner, it's not going to help. It's going to be limited information. And yeah, it's nice because information, as much as you can get, is very nice. But if you don't have all of it, you're missing, critical information that again, affects your design and affects what's going to go on out there. So, I think the law's going to have, something put in there, like I said, to, in the first part of when someone's following this procedure and then requesting for that stuff that the information is given in a timely manner.
Thank you. Yeah, on our progress, I think I was kind of involved in starting this map or chart. And as you see, it's a huge undertaking because it starts off pretty small, but there are so many facets to the process. Trying to take into account the size of the project and the type of project that's going on. And then at the same time, all the different stakeholders involved in it, who there's, just as you mentioned, there's time and everybody's busy, and so there's a big cost involved in doing this. However, as Member Soren said, and I think his $10 to $1 number is probably pretty accurate, that boy, you can save some money by addressing things now. But we do have to address who has to put up that front money and make things happen. So I guess my request is to, yeah, if we definitely want to get some feedback on this map. I know it's confusing. Try to not get too critical of it too soon, and just try to follow it. And speaking to anybody listening now, I see Carga's representative here, and I'd like to, as the board, perhaps pass it on and get involvement from taking it on as a discussion item, maybe putting a team together as, in our workshops. But yeah, just taking it one step at a time and recognizing the different facets, because I, been involved in this type of work, and being an engineer designer, it's imperative to get good information early, and there is opposition from a lot of people, and understandably so. I mean, you'll hear issues about national security. They don't want to give things away and stuff, and in some cases that's correct. A lot of times it's just because it's too much work and overload on people. So we need to come up with ways to make everybody move forward and work together on providing this information, and some guidelines and rules that make it work. And just lastly, like Mr. Wingate mentioned, we are in the moving forward ahead of like the rest of the nation. Pennsylvania has theirs. Colorado has a dig ticket program. I know Minnesota claims and stuff, but a lot of them have been these short-sighted solutions, which really don't address all these issues. So if we can extend that period, I think that's definitely worthwhile. It sounds like we got people interested in sharing with other groups. So let's regroup and plan on a workshop that gets involvement. And so Any other comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We appreciate the board's comments and our stakeholder comments, and we are happy to extend the survey till the end of this month, April 30th, and we will definitely plan an upcoming workshop. So very appreciative to everybody emailing it out to gather more input and feedback. Thank you.
Well, moving ahead here, I recognize member engagements means we're getting close to the end. So next item is the board member public engagement report regarding any relevant experience with the public relating to the board or safe excavation practices. We will begin with board comments followed by public comments. So are there any board members who would like to provide updates on public engagements? All right, well, going once here, I did participate as people have talked to the CGA conference it was last week in Orlando. I usually go as my own company representative. However, I think I even passed out one of my board cards and shared the fact that I was with the board, and then having some other staff there was really, I think, beneficial and kind of helped us see what's going on. I definitely want to encourage those of you that have the opportunity to go to maybe one of the national CGA conferences. Not so much for all the presentations, but it is networking. It does bring the stakeholders in from so many different groups and locations. And so, yeah, you start getting a understanding that this is a real national issue of safe excavation. So I think they usually try to go East Coast, West Coast. So it'd be next springtime. Might even be California. I didn't check, but at least close by. No, they did one time. Oh no, they canceled. It was during COVID. Oh no, it was Anaheim, but anyway, yeah, it's definitely a worthwhile conference. They did have one speaker. I sat in a session, was very impressed with on data. I can't remember exactly who it was, but I think it was a local company here, PG&E, I think was their name, that provided their speaker, and it was very informative. So I guess that's it. If nobody else had any public comment. So we'll open up in-person comments. And anything on the web.
There are no comments.
Okay. Seeing no further comments, we'll proceed to item 32. We'll now proceed to Executive Officer's Report. Ms. Brannaman, please proceed with the Executive Officer's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am pleased to introduce Jessica. Everyone met her earlier, but Jessica is our new Chief of Education and Outreach. She has a background in marketing and first joined the board as part of the education and outreach team earlier or last year. And with that, I will hand it over to Jessica.
Thank you, Ms. Brannaman. Chair Johns, members of the board, and stakeholders, I'm pleased to provide an update on the education and outreach program. The first update is for the board's education course. The first in-person excavation basics enforcement training was held on February 24, 2025 in Sacramento with 23 participants in attendance. The next session is scheduled for October 30th in Riverside. The Education and Outreach Unit continues to register those who received mandatory completion of the education course as a penalty and is planning additional training dates. Next, I will provide an overview of the 2024 Underground Safety Board business meetings outreach, and webinar attendance. There were 5 board meetings in 2024 and 1,287 total emails were delivered to those signed up for the meeting and workshop service list. These emails announced meeting details through the notice and agenda. Each of the board's 2024 business meetings were available to attend virtually, and there were a total of 200 unique webinar attendee logins for the year. Next slide, please, Madam Secretary. Thank you. And one more, please. I will also provide an update on the Education and Outreach Unit's 2025 National Safe Digging Month outreach. Over 100 informational emails were sent to California Assembly members and senators that included an introduction to National Safe Digging Month and a call to action to help promote safe digging to their constituents. One result so far is that the Office of Senator Umberg, District 34, posted Safe Digging Month content on its official Facebook, Instagram, and X accounts. Additionally, throughout the month of April, Energy Safety's social media platforms will be posting videos promoting safe digging practices, including key messages, promotion of 811, the Call 811 website, and the history of the Dig Safe Act. These videos will feature California Natural Resources Agency Secretary Crowfoot, Energy Safety's Director Thomas Jacobs, and Deputy Director Marino, and myself. I will now return the floor to Ms. Branneman.
Thank you. As a side note, anytime we make the news, we buy ice cream. So I sent out an email saying, since Jessica made internal news, I'll buy the ice cream this time for the team. But with that, I just have a few enforcement metrics to provide the board. So currently we have 251 active investigations. This does not include cases that were on the April agenda item. And in 2024, just an overview of how many damages we received. We received 1,383 damage and complaint notifications received in 2024. We had 194 open investigations. So that was 13% of the notifications. That does not include the pilot information. So we are in a pilot program with Southern California Gas, where they are reporting to us all damages that take place that don't involve an 811 ticket. So we are currently in the second phase of that pilot, and we have SoCalGas has provided us 211 no 811 notifications since July of 2024. We have 113 active no 811 pilot investigations from phase 2. And I'm happy to introduce the board after this meeting to our Southern California investigations team. They are here and they are handling a lot of the no 811 ticket investigations in that pilot. And with that, I am happy to conclude the executive officer's report.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Branneman. We'll start with in-person comments. If you'd like to make a comment, please approach the podium. And moving to the web, any comments?
There, no comment.
Okay, seeing no comments there, would any member like to begin discussion? Okay, so seeing no further discussion, we'll proceed with the next item. So item 33, adjournment. I don't know, do we have to vote on leaving early?
No, we've concluded all business.
I think we completed all business. So we look forward to seeing you all at the next board meeting scheduled for July 14th and 15th. Seeing no other business, if no board member objects, we will adjourn the meeting. No objections? All right, the official gavel. Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all for your attendance.